What's going on, everybody? My name is John, and you are watching Super Positive Games, and I am here with my annual top 10 games of 2020. I have my 10 favorite games of the year, ranked from 10 being the least and 1 being my game of the year. But before I get into that, I have a couple of things to get into, like honorable mentions, like a couple quick shout outs, and like the worst 3. I'll start off with the worst 3. Actually, let's get through the negativity first. My worst 3 games, these are the 3 games that I've played in 2020 that I enjoyed the very least. They were the worst 3 games of the year. They are Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2, and Resident Evil Resistance. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered just wasn't for me. There's an audience for this type of game, a very time trial-y game, where, you're going for the best times. You're replaying races over and over and over again for those times. I like, with my racing games, I like somewhat of a semblance of a story. I like some type of an explorable open world, like the Forza Horizon series, but Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered felt very, very generic. You keep unlocking cars that all kind of look like cars that you've already unlocked. It just was not a fun experience. I will say a highlight, a positive note, were the kind of cop races where you play as cops trying to disrupt the races by smashing into the cars and driving them off the road before their race ends. I felt like that mode was a lot more fun than the regular racing mode, as the racers. Yeah, but just like super generic game. Obviously, it's a remaster of I believe 2010 was when Hot Pursuit originally came out. The remake, actually, there was Hot Pursuit 1 and 2, and then this was like a reboot in 2010, and this is the remaster of that reboot. But yeah, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered, I never thought to myself, wow, I'm having a lot of fun while I was playing this game. Probably one of the worst experiences of the year. And I know there is an audience for this. There are people who love the time trial aspect, going for the best time, replaying races and doing all these crazy things, but it's just not for me. Again, like I'll point out positives, the cop races and the kind of gadgets that you get to use were cool, but overall very generic for me. A very generic game in my eyes. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. Then Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2. This was probably the biggest disappointment because Curse of the Moon 1, which came out in 2018, actually made my list that year. It was number 8 in 2018, but this sequel just missed the mark in a fantastical manner. The design of each level were very poor. I feel like this game, the levels were packed with way too many enemies and had much more of an emphasis on platforming, which in this game, as you know, it's a 2D Castlevania-esque type of platformer. The platforming in this game was horrible because when your character jumps, you can't adjust where they're going to land midair. There's always a predetermined spot that they're going to land when you jump. So that made the platforming really, really annoying and difficult, while also having way too many enemies around you, attacking you, throwing things at you, rushing at you from all different directions, made the gameplay, the moment-to-moment gameplay of this game, really unenjoyable for me. Like, that style of gameplay was not fun for me, and I do not remember the levels being designed like that in the original game in 2018. I felt like that game was a lot more simplified in terms of there's not a million enemies coming at you, and there's not so much of an emphasis on the platforming part of it in that game. Here, all those things feel like they're amplified, and it's just a bit too much in a way that just made the game unenjoyable to me. And then there's the bosses, which were super not well designed. One of them was a direct copy-paste from the original game. with the only difference being the layout of the boss room. So that was an odd choice. Another problem I had with a different boss was it glitched out on me in two different ways. The first time I had the killing blow on it, and it didn't do anything. The game just stopped. It didn't freeze, but like the boss kept moving. It didn't keep attacking though. It was still like moving around, but the health bar was at 0. I got the killing blow. It did the I'm dead animation that all the bosses do, but nothing else happened after that. So I had to restart the save or whatever and come back to it. But when I came back to it, it glitched out in a different way, where the platforms that rise out of the floor that allow you to jump up and hit the boss in the damage spot, those stopped spawning midway through the fight. And now there was no way for me to get up there and actually damage the boss. None of my characters were able to have the ability to jump that high. They needed the platforms, but they stopped spawning for some reason, and then I couldn't beat the boss, so I had to restart again. So like having one boss glitch out 2 different times was extremely frustrating. And then another boss fight, there was a part where if you choose the tank character with that enormous health pool and stand in one spot and just mash the attack button, you get through the boss in seconds. So these bosses were just not designed well. The original game, they were designed super well. The boss room, platform designs, layout was all well done, as well as the attacks and learning all of the moves from the bosses in the original game were all well done. Here, the bosses were just completely botched. I will say the game has great music, though. I'll give it that. There's no denying that. And a pretty cool art style, but I just could not get into this game at all. I did not finish the game. I got to the final boss, and I was like, hey, I'm done with this. I really did not enjoy it. First game, the original game in 2018, is definitely the way to go. Much more simplified design, way better bosses, designed super well there, but this game was a massive disappointment, given how much I loved the original. And then there's Resident Evil Resistance, which, yes, technically is a separate game from Resident Evil 3. I know they're released in the same package, but they are 2 separate applications. Therefore, my personal ruling is that they are 2 separate video games, and we will talk about Resident Evil 3 later on in this list, which I'm excited to do. But Resistance was horrible. It's this kind of 4v1, the 4 survivors. It's a multiplayer game. The 4 survivors try and get through the map and get to the escape, while the one mastermind is in the cameras controlling all of the doors and can spawn in a bunch of zombies and monsters to kind of hinder the 4 survivors and their progress to the end of the level. So I mean, a cool idea on paper, but poorly executed. In terms of the survivor side of the gameplay, though, Resident Evil games are typically designed in very tight spaces, tight hallways and rooms. Having 4 survivors in one map was just chaos, and it was a mess. And having the mastermind spawn in millions of zombies on top of you was just a complete mess. Everybody was just doing everything, and difficult to see what the hell was going on. Zombies coming from every direction, meleeing characters, and just like, what the hell is going on over here? Just abysmal of a mess. And then your teammate, or my teammates, were usually the first ones to do the objectives in order to progress. So I really never learned what those objectives were, because every time my teammates would take care of it in an instant without me really getting a chance to know what the hell they're actually doing, where the hell they're going, and how to progress. So like, that sucked too. I was just kind of following along, trying to make sense of the chaos that was happening in front of me, trying to stay alive. It was just, not a good experience. I mean, there are different characters that have different abilities and whatnot that you could alter with earning different perks and whatnot. But I mean, the core experience was just a mess. On the mastermind side, that was kind of decent, because you're in the cameras, you're placing zombies here or there with a kind of card game strategy. You pick You know, you have like a deck of cards that changes, and each card that you use, it gets replaced with a new one that recharges and whatnot. But the Mastermind gameplay was slightly more fun, but as a game overall, it's a multiplayer game overall, what a mess. So that's Resident Evil Resistance. I'm glad that they released Resident Evil 3 alongside of it, because I remember after Resident Evil 2, after the success of that game and how much everybody liked it, including me, they announced Resident Evil Resistance first, and then Resident Evil 3 like a couple weeks or months later. So everybody thought, oh, what's the next big remake? Oh, it's Resistance, a multiplayer game? Are you kidding me? And then a couple weeks later, they're like, yeah, Resident Evil 3. I was like, okay, good. So yeah, Resident Evil Resistance is not a very good game. One of my least favorite games of the year. So there you have it. Those are my worst 3. Resident Evil Resistance, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2, and Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. Let's move on from the negativity. Let's be a little bit more positive here, now that all that's behind us. Quick couple of shout outs. These 4 games I enjoyed a lot, but didn't quite make it to the list or honorable mention section. They are Welcome to Elk, Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, Tell Me Why, and Watch Dogs Legion. All very good games, enjoyed them a lot, but did not quite make it to the top levels. Now it's time for my 2 honorable mentions. These are in no particular order, but I'll talk about Mafia Definitive Edition first. Mafia Definitive Edition is, of course, a remake of the 2002 original Mafia game, which came out before my time as a gamer, so I never really got to play it. I did play Mafia 2, though, and I did play maybe half of Mafia 3. Didn't like that one, no. But yeah, I was excited to get into, finally, the origin of the Mafia franchise, and I was very impressed. This is a very, very good game, especially in terms of that story, the story of Tommy Angelo, how he gets involved, the cab driver who gets involved in the Salieri crime family, and how that goes out is super well done. All the characters along the way, from Paulie's super memorable, and of course Mr. Salieri himself, he sends his regards. But yeah, like, this game is super solid. Like, the combat is very well designed. Your health does not regenerate, so you do have to seek out different health packs around the combat areas. And I say combat areas because, yes, this is an open world game. However, all of the combat and the missions in general usually take place in linear areas. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah, you have to seek out your own health packs, which makes for a very more careful experience. You know, you have to take more care of how you're moving around during combat, in and out of cover. It gives it a real sense of purpose instead of just running and gunning, because, you know, the combat here is very simple. You know, you have weapons, you have pistols, Tommy guns, obviously, shotguns, there's a sawed-off shotgun, maybe a rifle, if I remember, and grenades. So, like, the combat's pretty simple, and I think the that health pack system, having to go seek out the health packs in the areas, makes it a little bit more complex, just a little bit, just enough to make the combat feel meaningful and careful. As I mentioned, yes, this is an open world game. However, the only thing to do in this open world is to go on to the main mission objective. There's literally nothing else to do. There's no side missions. There are no encounters in the world. It's really... there's 2 sides to the coin, in my opinion. You know, it's weird to play an open world game as somebody who's a fan of... I do like a good open world game with a lot of things to do. So it was weird to play a game like Mafia Definitive Edition and have there be literally nothing to do in the world. But on the other side of that coin, I do like the simplicity that it brings. You know, I am a lover of linear games. As much as I love open world games, I do really love linear games, and for this game to kind of have a bit of both, but really the linear areas of the game are much stronger than the open world areas. I think I enjoyed it for the simplicity that it brought, even though it was a little weird to play an open world game that didn't truly feel like an open world game because there was nothing to do in that world other than, of course, move on to the next mission. It kind of made it feel like a demo almost. That add the fact that before each and every little chapter is a chapter card at the beginning of it, made it feel like it didn't flow the right way from chapter to chapter. It kind of presented, okay, this is the beginning of this chapter and that chapter, and each chapter, each little mission in the game is a chapter in itself. There's like 25 or so chapters, and they're all presented with a card at the beginning, which made it feel even more like a demo almost. Plus the fact that the cutscenes had these weird kind of rumbling sounds at the end of each one as they were fading out, made it feel like a kind of sample, like I was playing a sample of a game instead of like a full-blown, fleshed-out experience. But I did like the simplicity that it brought with it, in that, all there is to do is the main missions. There was no, oh, well, let me clear out some of the side missions before I move and progress the main story. There was none of that. All there was to do was the main missions, which was refreshing almost. As somebody who played Assassin's Creed Valhalla, there's an overwhelming amount of things to do in that game, from a myriad of different activities and encounters. So some of those types of games can be a little bit overwhelming, and Mafia is pretty fresh in that regard. Not overwhelming at all. All there is to do is to move on to that next story objective. So yeah, I did really enjoy Mafia. Of course, driving is a big part of that Mafia identity, and it's really well done here. The cars feel really weighty, meaningful, impactful. I liked going into the free roam mode. Lets you just drive around the open world. I loved going to that mode and just smashing into everything. Just pointing my car in a direction, hitting pedal to the metal, and never letting go until the car stops after bouncing off of 11 things. Like, that was so much fun because of how good and weighty the cars felt to maneuver and operate. So the cars were very well done. The driving was very well done as well. So Mafia, very, very solid game. I think that story really elevated it. The betrayal, the danger. Right? I'm not going to go into spoilers about it, but Paulie and everything like that, like all of that story was really, really well done, and the gameplay backed it up, and I love the linearity that was behind it. That kind of those two sides of the coin, where it did feel weird to play in an open world like designed that way, but on the other hand, I like it because it's kind of simple. It's not overwhelming. It's like there's only one thing to go and do here, and a very enjoyable game. Mafia Definitive Edition, definitely liked it more than Mafia 3. Mafia 3 had a lot of issues, but very, very solid. Mafia Definitive Edition, if you like open world games, but also like linear game experiences, like, this is a great game. It's a great mixture of the two. It has that open world that you're free to explore if you want, but also all of the meat and potatoes lie in those linear sequences and all the really well done cutscenes and everything like that, and all the characters, of course. Shout out to Paulie once again. Mafia Definitive Edition is a really, really good game. My next honorable mention, though, is Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Now, this is the third Call of Duty in a row that made it into my honorable mentions that couldn't break into the top 10. I look back to Black Ops 4 2 years ago, and last year Modern Warfare was an honorable mention as well. So this is the third Call of Duty game in a row to be an honorable mention, not quite being able to break into the top 10, but Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is incredible. One of the best Call of Duty campaigns I've played in a very, very long time. I think this campaign was way better than Black Ops 4, because Black Ops 4 didn't have a campaign. Way better than the garbage fire that was Black Ops 3. I liked it a lot more than Black Ops 2's campaign, which I wasn't crazy about. And I may have liked this campaign slightly more than Black Ops 1's campaign. Because this campaign, obviously, it's the Cold War. It takes place in between Black Ops 1 and 2. But this, being the Cold War, is a very down-low kind of spy espionage kind of feel to it. That 80s, it takes place in the 80s, so a little bit later in the Cold War. That kind of espionage, you're sneaking around, you're meeting people in a bar, look for the lady in the blue umbrella, go talk to her because she'll give you intel that we need for this mission. Like, there's a lot of different interesting, unique ways that this game goes about gameplay instead of that classic Call of Duty firing range, explosions everywhere, running and gunning and everything. Don't get me wrong, there are still a couple of those missions in here, but it's balanced out very well with those low-key. You're sneaking into somebody's apartment in Berlin. Their family's there too, so you have to be really quiet. You have a tranquilizer gun. You have to get whatever you need to do, plant whatever, or get whatever intel. There's another mission where you're undercover in the KGB as a mole for the good guys, and you have to go and take out one of these top commanders who you have to get their access key, but you need to kill them too. So you've presented with like 4 or 5 different options to go and take them out, whether it's frame them for some other thing, or it's get one of the interrogation prisoners to kill them, or like there's different ways to go about doing this task in these missions. Like it opens it up, and I love that KGB mission, by the way. You have to kind of get this access card to go down into the underground basement to let in the good guys so they could get their undercover uniforms and go infiltrate the deeper levels to get the intel that they need. Like, that kind of stuff was incredible. Like, and then there's another mission later on. I'm not going to get into story spoilers with it, but it's a Vietnam flashback, right? And you're going through and you're hallucinating all these different things that are juxtaposed in the Vietnam jungles. Like, you're seeing these red doors, these steel red doors falling from the sky. You're seeing Soviet statues in the middle of the forest where they don't look like they belong there. You're seeing control centers on like a hill or in a mountain, like these things that look very much out of place in the environment. They're hallucinations. You have like whole battles where everybody is frozen in time and you're moving through it. Like, they get extremely creative. Some of the most creative Call of Duty missions that I have ever played in my gaming career. That mission that I just talked about with all the hallucination stuff, that's called Break On Through, I believe. That's probably my favorite mission in the game, but also maybe even in all of Call of Duty. It's definitely up there. It's such an incredible experience. That one mission, you're going through the same gameplay sequence again and again, but every time you do it, everything changes based on the story that you're being given, based on the hallucinations. Everything changes in those same areas that you're going through again and again, and it's just what an outstandingly creative mission that is Break On Through. Definitely my favorite mission of the game, but also the Berlin mission, also the KGB one. Like, there's so many amazingly crafted campaign missions in this story, and the story itself is pretty solid. I did not like the way Woods and Mason were used. I think they accompany you in a couple of the missions, but in terms of the grand scheme of the story, they're not really involved, which was disappointing. It's more so about Adler and Bell, which was the character you create at the beginning of the campaign, as well as a character named Park. Like, it's all about the new characters, really. And Hudson is back too. But a solid story, incredible campaign with some of the best Call of Duty missions I've ever played. Just the sheer creativity, just through the roof. Like, I really hope to see more from this Raven studio. Then there's the multiplayer. Multiplayer was solid, wasn't anything special. I liked a couple of the map designs, that kind of 80s vibe. There's the Miami one with all the neon. There's the kind of desert with that crashed satellite, which is in line with the space race that was going on during the time period. They get creative with the locations and the map art design, but the gameplay, the multiplayer itself, just wasn't anything interesting. It was solid. It was decent. It looked and reminded me a lot of Modern Warfare's design in terms of like the reload animations and the gun positioning on screen is very, very similar. I think they might have used kind of that Modern Warfare template from the previous game. Maybe because Sledgehammer was originally supposed to make the game, but late in development they kind of swapped over to Treyarch and Raven taking over, and so they might have used that Modern Warfare template to kind of keep them in line with production schedules. So, and that's pure speculation, but that might have been what was happening that caused this kind of similarity that I've noticed between Modern Warfare and Black Ops Cold War. But then there's the zombies, which was solid again. It takes place in this kind of underground science lab bunker, which we've seen a million times in zombies. The above ground section, the opening area, is kind of unique in that it's kind of this snowy, graffiti covered concrete walls and everything. Like, that was interesting, that really colorful graffiti look. But when you get underground, it's just the same lab science bunker that we've seen time and time again in Call of Duty Zombies. I'm looking for more of a unique, wacky experience. When I think about Call of Duty Zombies modes that I enjoyed, I think back to Black Ops 2 Transit, which is still the GOAT, still on my COD Zombies throne. Transit, I think about Buried, I think about Black Ops 4's Voyage of Despair, or 9. I think about that 30s map that launched with Black Ops 3. Die Rise from Black Ops 2. I think about all those crazy, unique, wacky ideas. Like, I want to get wacky in zombies, I understand they want to stay grounded and can make it connect to the campaign storytelling and everything. But, like, we have that realism in the campaign and the multiplayer. I want to get wacky in zombies. Throw me on a bus and drive me around a deserted town and diner area and everything like that. Put me underground in this Wild West kind of ghost town. I like that kind of those unique areas, those unique locations and settings and vibes that Zombies has been doing for the longest time, especially Treyarch Zombies. I wanted a little bit more from this map, which I am blanking on the name here. But I was kind of let down on the kind of I've seen this before element of, wow, it's just another Zombies underground science lab in a bunker that I've seen so many times. Like, I wanted that unique, special Zombies wackiness from some of my favorite maps. I wanted that back, but let down here in Zombies. So, Black Ops Cold War, very, very good campaign. Not so much for the overall story, but some of those individual missions were just, oh my god, just outstandingly creative and unique, especially that break on through mission with the hallucinations in the jungle there. The multiplayer was decent, some cool looking maps, which when I play multiplayer, that's what I look forward to, is interesting looking maps. And there are a couple there, but in terms of the gameplay, it's just like the same multiplayer that we know. And then Zombies kind of let me down. I wanted that wackiness. I wanted that weird Treyarch, let's hop on a bus, on a transit bus, and go ride around a town, or let's go exploring in a ghost town underneath the ground. Like, I like that stuff, but was missing here. But solid Zombies. It was fun. It's Zombies. It's gonna be fun, but missing that kind of unique factor to make it really stand out. So that's Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Really, really fun game. Campaign was short, though. I'll say that. It was pretty short, but wow, those missions, some of those missions were just blew me away. So let's now move on. Let's get right into the list itself with number 10. That is going to be Spiritfarer. Spiritfarer is a indie game. It's a 2D management game where you are on a ship and you are harboring these souls who are dying, and you have to make them have a good life aboard your ship in their final days. So you're kind of making them comfortable and making them little homes to live out their final days before you bring them to the ever door, which is where they move on, so to speak. So yeah, you're going to different islands, you're upgrading your ship, you're building different structures on your boat. As you upgrade, you have like a farming structure, you have eventually a metal ore structure. Yeah, so you're sailing your ship around. What I love the most about this game is you are setting your destination, and as your ship is moving along, as you're traveling to that destination, you have all this free time to farm food or make food in the oven, or make wool thread, or build more structures, or make wood planks, and kind of doing the management part on your ship as you're going to the next destination, the next island, to either get more materials or go meet different characters to bring aboard your ship. Like this kind of, you're building like such a community, this mobile community, that as on the way to more things, more islands, more places, you're managing your ship and doing all of those management things. You could also fish off the side of your ship. Like this world is so well crafted. Each member of that you bring on your ship has different wants and needs. They like different kinds of foods. They have different kinds of requests and missions that they want you to take care of for them. And they also provide different things. Like they have different kind of these gameplay sections where, let's say you get caught in a rainstorm and it's lightning is gonna come. One of the characters lets you do like a dance or whatever, or plays like a flute that lets the lightning strike the ship, and you catch the lightning in a bottle, and that is now a material that could be used for building different things on the ship. So they help you gather these specific unique resources to help the ship grow even more. And I like the different types of these animals. There's like a deer, there's a frog, there are some lions, and they all have really cool, really well written personalities, and they're all different, and they like different things, and they eat different things, and this game lets you build such an emotional connection to each of these characters. And when it's time to say goodbye to these characters, to finally bring them to the Everdoor to move on, it actually hit me. Like I was like, wow, like I teared up a little bit. This game made me tear up at a couple of points through it. Not full-blown cry. Only 2 games have made me full-blown cry. That's going to be Red Dead Redemption 2 and The Walking Dead, the final season. The only 2 games to make me cry. This game, Spiritfarer, made me tear up a little bit because those connections that I formed, taking care of these characters, fulfilling their requests, giving them food that they like, talking to them all the time, like they always want to talk, and then finally bringing them to their final destination there. But yeah, just like the different biomes, there's like a snowy part of the map that you can only get to if you have a certain type of kind of ice breaking thing on the front of your ship that could break through ice. So you have to build up enough resources to be able to buy that upgrade. So now you can get to the snowy area and explore those islands and get to know those characters. And then there's the music. The music in this game is really, really well done for a game where you are it's a very low-key, chill game. There's not a lot of action at all. There's no combat at all, and there's not a lot of action. There's a little bit of platforming involved, which is really well done and fun to use platform. There's like zip lines. There's use your hat as like a wind kind of umbrella that pulls you up. And some of these islands are really fun to traverse in that way. But I mean, like, yeah, the different, the music in a game like this where there's no voice has to be really good, and is really, really well done. Each character, like I said, has different benefits to the materials that you could gather with different world events. They also help you, like one of them the snake character helps you grow crops faster when you play a certain song on your instrument. If you go to the garden, you play a certain song and the crops grow faster. They help you out in different ways as you are helping them out on their final journey, which is really nice. And the ship, it's fully customizable. You could put each of these characters' houses and the different farming areas and different cow pens, for example. You could put them anywhere you want on the ship, so you could really make it your own. I found my ship to really change a lot as I had to fit things in the different requirement spaces, and which expands the more you upgrade your ship. You could build it bigger and bigger and bigger with more structures and everything like that. So this game is really, really cool. Hits that emotional feeling of this is sad. Like, I'm bringing this character that I've shared so much with. I've done so much with this character. We had so many conversations. That connection was really formed, I felt. And now I have to say goodbye. Like, that kind of really, really hit. And I will say some of the characters were more impactful than others in that sense. There are some that weren't as interesting to me, or were only on the ship for a short amount of time. But there are other characters that really, really spend a lot of time on your ship and really can go whenever they want. The ending of the game, it doesn't wait for a certain amount of activities or requirements to be fulfilled before the game gives you, okay, this is the final mission. It just pops up at a certain point, at a certain time into the game. It just pops up. Oh, in the middle of everything, it's time to go. So you get going whenever you're ready. It's that kind of deal. It doesn't force you to complete a certain amount of things at all. There are no requirements really, other than make sure you're there. Maybe there's a certain amount, after a certain amount of characters you see off into the next life, then it triggers that final ending. But it doesn't feel, it feels more organic. It doesn't feel like, oh, okay, this triggered that. No, it's this, I'm doing these things, and then all of a sudden, okay, now it's my time to do the final mission. I feel like it's just really well designed in that way, of not really feeling like it's structured, or you have to do this thing or that thing in order and able to progress through the game. It's not like that. It's very chill. It's relaxed. You're sailing to different areas, and while you're sailing, you're doing your management on your ship of farming different crops and vegetables, and picking the apples and making the food, and giving the characters the food, and making their houses and upgrading their houses, and making them the happiest that they can be on this journey. That loop of just going from island to island. Okay, let's set course for that island, and when on the way there, I'll do this and I'll do that. I never ran out of things to do on the ship on the way to all the different locations. I never ran out of things to do. There's always something to do. Even if there's not, why don't I go fishing on the back of the ship? Try and catch some fish to grill or whatever, or stuff like that. It's so, that moment to moment gameplay is really, really well done. Very, very enjoyable game. What else can I say about it? I would say it's a must play. It's probably my favorite management game that I've ever played. Certainly the first ever management game to make a top 10 list of mine. So yeah, Spiritfarer, if you like management games like Stardew Valley or Slime Rancher, for example, that kind of thing, or even Minecraft, if you are a fan of management games, Spiritfarer is a must play for management game fans. Must play Spiritfarer. Yeah, it's a really, really great experience, Spiritfarer. But now, moving on to number 9 is Cloudpunk. Cloudpunk, not Cyberpunk. It's a different punk. We'll get to the other punk later on the list, and that's going to be interesting to talk about. But Cloudpunk is a indie game. It's a 3D voxel game. So these 3D kind of blocky textures everywhere. As you're seeing on screen, it looks stunning. It's a visual stunner for sure, Cloudpunk. You play as a character named Rania, and it is your first night in Novalis on the job as a Cloudpunk driver, a delivery person. You're delivering packages, but then you go and you start driving people around, which you're not really. It's not part of the job, but it becomes part of the job. It's kind of a shady business that your character gets involved in, and that that story arc and who you're in contact with from the Cloudpunk delivery company. That kind of operator, Control is his name. I believe he's an AI, but like that, or not, like that's the whole mystery of the game. I won't spoil anything, but like that's the character who you really get to know and you get to talk to. And really the gameplay of Cloudpunk is you have your Huzzah is what they're called, these flying vehicles, and you're going and delivering packages for Cloudpunk. You're getting in the car or Huzzah and you're just driving around. You also get to get out on foot on some of these areas. The camera is very zoomed out. It's not like a third person game. It's difficult to describe. You can go first person actually, and you can go a third person view, but I decided to stay with the default view because I felt like that was the how it was meant to be played. But you can go first person, which I did pop into first person here or there just to see what it was like, just to see certain areas of this beautiful city. It's always raining, by the way. I love the rain. It's always raining in Novalis. It's in a cloud. It's Cloudpunk. But yeah, just like going first person sometimes just was awesome. But yeah, Cloudpunk, you're going around and you're delivering packages. And what makes Cloudpunk so amazing to me was not only the visual aspect, the incredible art style, that voxel, that neon cyberpunk voxel world, but it was the story that really pulled me in and made me interested in this game so much. Like you have a AI companion named Camus who's with you, and it's just like you're going with Camus and you're having conversations like the whole time, basically. It's just like these conversations that you have with different characters as you're driving around was awesome. And it's not just going back to Cloudpunk HQ to pick up the next package. It's not like that at all. You're going around and different things are happening. Oh, go over there. That person needs us to pick them up. So you go over there. So you're getting packages and picking people up from different locations in the world. It's not always okay, I delivered this or I dropped this person off back to Cloudpunk HQ for the next thing. You do go back sometimes, but most of the time you're going to different locations to pick things up or people up to bring to other different locations in the world. So it was very interesting in that way. It was not just a plain and simple back and forth to Cloudpunk and whatever. So I really liked that aspect of it. I will say some of the on-foot areas are difficult to navigate because the camera, in some of the tighter kind of grid-like areas, when you're on foot, the camera kind of freaks out and it kind of whips around in 7 different ways as you make a turn, and the controls flip on you and you can't really, it's difficult. So there's some problems there in the tighter spaces, but going around and talking to the different characters in the different districts, it is a very kind of, there's the world and there's these different plots of cities, of city streets and city areas that you could land in like these parking spots, and you land your hover, you get out, you go walk around and talk to people and pick up collectibles, and there's shops that you could buy things at, and you do have your own apartment that you get in the city, which is also really cool. Like, but you can buy things to like furnish it and like add a refrigerator or add a pizza pie on the table or add a radio or a fish tank. But some of these things, like I added a radio and no music played in the apartment. Like there was not a way to make music play from the radio. It's just there sitting in the corner. So there were some disappointing aspects of how do you customize your apartment. But I mean, that's compared to the game as a whole, like the game as a whole was just like so good that apartment stuff didn't really matter that much. Like, it was like, all right, I'll let it slide because the game is so much fun. The game is so cool. The story's awesome. The Huzzah is fun to control as well. There's these little highway zones that kind of give your car a boost. So you can drive or you can fly your Huzzah around, not using the highways, but the highways make you go a little bit faster. Those are like the express routes. But I found it fun to go in between the buildings and every which way. So yeah, that's Cloudpunk in a nutshell. Like, I think if you're into the cyberpunk vibe, this thing really nails it. It has fantastic music. And the gameplay is very, very simple. Like I said, you're just driving your Huzzah, you're walking around the areas. But it's the story, the art, the visual design, like that voxel art style, the music. It's that vibe of Cloudpunk that really, that is just nailed. And it's just such a great experience, even though the gameplay is very, very simple. It's just such a atmospheric game, and such a great story too. Cloudpunk, I can't recommend enough. Yeah, so moving on now to number 8. That's going to be Ori and the Will of the Wisps. That is right. So Ori 2 making the list. I played Ori 1, I don't know, however long ago that was, but I didn't think it was all that great. But Ori 2 is phenomenal. It's very much an action game. Ori is very fun to control. The traversal, climbing, swinging, dashing through the world with all of his weapons. He's got a hammer. There's a sword, bow and arrow, a spear. Like, his arsenal is really expanded from what I remember in the first game. But the highlight for me in this game was all of the different environments, the different areas of the world. Of course, the story is phenomenal as well. Like, that kind of heartwarming story of Ori and his family and their owl friend goes and gets lost, and the search for, I forgot the owl's name, by the way, but the owl, you need to find them. And Ori makes a lot of friends along the way, like Qualok the frog. The story is really, really well done, and there's a twist at the very end that I'm not going to spoil, but it is a mind-blowing twist at the end of this game. But yeah, like the emotional parts of the characters kind of waiting for Ori to come back home, or when Ori does find the owl, like their adventure together. There's a section of the game where Ori rides on the owl's back, and they could fly and hover and do all these cool things as part of the gameplay once they meet up. That part of the game is not permanent. It doesn't last forever, but it's a good section of the game where they kind of team up like that, and it's really, really cool. But yeah, the story is very, very good. But what I think I liked the most about this game was the different environments, right? There's these different biomes. You have, of course, the foresty area, but there's also a lot of different unique areas. Like, there's the snowy mountains, right? There's the kind of water wheel type of area, which I'm not really a fan of. There are the Luma pools, which might have been my favorite area in the game, right? With all these bubbly, bright blues and pinks and greens, and there's water everywhere, and there's bubbles floating up, and it's just like such a bright and vibrant area of the map. Those Luma pools are just amazing to look at. And then there's the Molewood Depths where the spiders live, and there's these crickets and spiders and bugs twitching in the walls. That art design too is just mind-blowing. The Molewood Depths, it's all dark, so like the gameplay mechanic there is you have to kind of find a way through this area, because in the dark you'll die. So you have to kind of light your way through, and the light is temporary, so each light that you lit will only be lit for a little while. So you have to make your way across in time to the next light and the next light as you move through the Molewood Depths, and then there's the kind of ash forest, which is really this dreary kind of dark, kind of dead area. Yeah, like there's such a diverse kind of array of these different biomes. And of course, Luma Pools is by far probably my favorite. Just the sheer color that comes off the screen in that area. Like, this game is beautiful. It's beautiful. Like, and the art design, like I said, in the Molewood Depths, like those twitching bugs in the walls are creepy as hell. But like, controlling Ori is just so much fun. He's so quick, and his movements are so fluid, and just such a treat to control. Ori, like, the combat, like I said, is diverse, and you could choose different combinations of weapons that you unlock, and attacks that you could do. And then there's the boss fights. The boss fights are some of them are really cool because they have connections to characters that you know and love. Others, like, almost every boss has like is a character that you get to feel for, like you get to have empathy for, and these boss fights are really like fun. Like, they're really well designed, from the boss's attacks, learning their attacks, learning how to counter, where in the map, where in the boss room, in quotes, to move, right? Like, all of that is just like some sensational boss fights. And of course, that with the music in this game is one of a kind. Incredible score as you're fighting these bosses, this intense music. But yeah, from like the moment to moment gameplay, from the combat to some of the puzzle solving, I love like the art direction in the world, not just for the look of it, but how it works, how it melds with the puzzles, right, is just a treat to behold. There is a kind of home base area that you get to build out. Like, you get to add swinging vines or wind pads that you can use to float upwards to get to different areas in this kind of home world for Ori, or hub area. Ori 2 is not only a visual treat, but it's a treat to play. To control Ori is just so much fun. And of course, the colors, the diversity of these different areas. Like, I mean, I don't know what else to say about Ori and the Will of the Wisps, other than it's just like everything that goes into it, the visuals, the music, the gameplay, it all of those things come together in an experience that just, like, it's just so well crafted, so well done, so much fun to play moment to moment. The boss fights, the puzzles, once again, the combat. I keep mentioning the combat. It feels like an action game, right? Like, this 2D it is a 2D action platformer, right? But it's just like, wow, like, what an experience. The story, once again, finding the owl, the emotional cues that come with that. It's just like, wow, what an experience. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. If you like 2D action platformers, I mean, this is a must play for fans of that genre. It's like, you have to play this if you're a fan of 2D action platformers. There's no two ways about it. Wildly good. I like the design of how you explore the world, like that home base kind of acts as a hub, but you're going back and revisiting some areas sometimes for different things. There are some side quests with side characters where these little Moki creatures are around the world, and they ask you to, I need a hat for this, or I need a lamp for that, and there's different items that you need to collect for them, or different, like, there are full-blown side quests in Ori too. Like I was expecting, okay, there's the main story and maybe some collectibles. No, there's characters in here that give you side quests to go and do in the world too. So, like, it's so fleshed out, this world. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. What else can I say about it, honestly? Number 8. But let's move on to number 7. Number 7 is Yakuza Like a Dragon. So I am a newcomer to the Yakuza series. Have never played a Yakuza game before. This was my very first one. And obviously it is a spin-off from that series, so I felt comfortable not really having to know anything about those 6 or 7 Yakuza games. I could just jump right in. It's a brand new story, brand new characters, so I was like, all right, this is my jumping in point. And I really, really, really enjoyed my time with Yakuza Like a Dragon. I did not get to finish it. It's a very, very long game, but I did play enough of it to be able, I felt like I was able to judge it accordingly. I got to, I think chapter 7-ish, 6 or 7-ish, around that area, which is 20-30 hours into the game, at least for me, because I take my time. I like to take everything in. I don't like to miss anything. So yeah, I did not get to finish Yakuza yet. I probably will soon, but it made it on this list at number 7. Like, Yakuza Like a Dragon has some of the best characters. Ichiban, Kasuga, and the friends that he meets along the way. Like this, let me talk about the story, right? When I think about this story, it reminds me of The Godfather in a way that just the sheer legacy that's being shown, the timelines that are being shown here. Like, it starts off with Ichiban's kind of patriarch figure, because obviously he's part of the Yakuza in the beginning. It starts off with his patriarch, kind of the leader of his family, his patriarch as a young boy. So we're starting off with the childhood of the patriarch, and then we get to Ichiban himself and his, 30 or 40 years later, Ichiban's connection and relationship with that patriarch as he's grown old. And then from there, there's 18 years that Ichiban spends in prison, and then he gets out, and then that's when the real adventure begins. And that kind of Godfather legacy. This is the legacy. This is the saga of these characters and Ichiban's story from a young boy all the way through to here he is now in Yokohama, meeting all his friends, meeting Nanba and I forgot the cop's name. Oh, Adachi. Yes, he meets Adachi, and the kind of brotherhood that forms around those three characters, and then later on the fourth character, which I forgot her name as well. The kind of the brotherhood, the bonds that these characters form, and it's a slow burn, right? What I love about this is, yes, there's the grand scheme of, there's all these families, these dangerous, scary families, and the story of all this violence and all that. But then the moment-to-moment gameplay takes place. It's such a kind of fun world where it's just everything's cool and we're having fun and we're doing cool things. We're not worried about the dangers of the families that exist in this world. We're doing our own thing and we're surviving. And Ichiban is forming these bonds, having fun with his friends. That is such a amazing dynamic, from the violence and the evil to the fun-natured, good-hearted characters just having fun and growing their friendship together, doing fun things, right? Collecting garbage, on a bicycle mini game, or there are a lot of cool, fun mini games in this game. A lot of side activities, going to the movies. There's a mini game there. There's just, this game is filled to the brim. There's a kart racing, dragon kart type of game. It's filled to the brim with activities to do, and a lot of them are fun. Others I kind of skip out on. I don't like the garbage can collecting thing. I did like the go-karts. I did like the movie watching thing, kind of a rhythm based deal going on there. But this, from the story, the gameplay is actually turn based. It's 3D game, right, third person game, but it's turn based, which is, as I understand, different, because the original series, all those games were full-blown action games. This is turn-based, and I was actually excited to try turn-based. I've personally been trying to get into that genre, turn-based strategy combat. I gotta say, this, even though it's turn-based, it might not be full action, it's still really fun to go through. Okay, my character, your characters kind of still move around on the screen. You can't directly control them once a battle starts, but they kind of shuffle around a little bit, and then you choose from a menu which attack you want, and you perform it. And there's a timing based input that you have to hit to really maximize your damage. And you on the other end, when you're defending yourself, there's a time based button that you need to hit to minimize the damage that you take as well. So that kind of, let me pick my attack. I have a certain amount of mana, so let me use a basic attack for now so I could fill up on mana and will really use it when I need it. There's a strategy that builds around that. And Nanba specifically is the healer type, so he could heal all the characters. So like, his basic attack refills his mana, so he could heal using that mana with his other healing abilities. So like using him in the right way, like only really using his basic attacks, not really going for his special mana based attacks. Let's refill that using that basic attack so that I can then heal the rest of my characters. Like that kind of aspect to it is just like really, really awesome. And this game is just really, really wacky too. Like there's some really crazy shit that goes on. There's this kind of like lobster character, and now Ichiban carries around this lobster that he found in the sewer that was part of the side mission. Right, and speaking of side missions, these side missions, some of the most well-designed side missions I've ever really played in video games. Like these are really, really fleshed out. There are characters that you're really getting to know, that you're coming back to time and time again to continue their storyline, their story arc in the side missions. There's one where there's this persimmon fruit on a tree, and there's a girl in a wheelchair who is, her whole life is, the fate of her life is depending on this persimmon fruit hanging onto that one branch on the tree, and you have to make sure to that persimmon stays on that tree by any means necessary, so that this girl's will to live stays intact. And you're going through, and you're coming back to that tree time and time again to check up on it, kind of, and you have to kind of stop people from, like, there's like a sumo wrestler, I if I remember, kind of beating up the tree for like practice, and you're like, hey, stop beating up that tree. And they don't know any better. They don't know about the persimmon and the girl in the wheelchair. So like you have to kind of explain to them. You have to stop them in a battle, and then you have to explain to them, hey, stop, stay away from the tree. Please leave it alone. On multiple occasions in this thing, you really get to that it really cultivates. It really builds upon itself. These side missions. There's another one where there's a homeless man at a soup line, and you're trying to get him to link up with one of the workers at the soup line, because he has a crush on her, and you're kind of playing wingman there, and you're kind of playing the Cupid role there, and trying to fix him up and giving him the right advice. And and these side missions, you do parts of them, and then the marker disappears for a while, and then as you progress in the game, they pop up again, and you go back, and it's that character that you know and you're familiar with. Oh, let's progress that a little bit. Let's see where that goes next. Like these side missions are so well designed. They're so thought out and well developed from a story perspective. It adds so much to an already engrossing main story. Like it is mind blowing how well these side missions are, designed and developed from the narrative perspective, from the character perspective, and even when some of the lines of dialogue aren't spoken, like there are some that are just text boxes and you have to click through them without any voiceover. And then like usually at the end of the side story arc, you'll get the it's like the main moment, the climax of the culmination of the story. That's when you get the kind of, you'll hear the characters' voices for the first time. Where I didn't even notice those changes. I'm so pulled in to the stories and the characters that I didn't really pay any mind to the lack of voiceover in some areas versus the voiceovers. Like I didn't really pay any mind to that. I'm like, wow, like this is some of the best side missions in video games. Like really, really, really well done. Great combat. There's the job system too, which opens up the game even more, right? Because now you get different weapons and you get different moves, right? So you have different mana moves, different attacks, and it really opens up the game. You get a different look based on the job that you get. Like, it is really cool. You go from, talk about that roller coaster, those two different worlds. There's that crime, murder, evil world, and then the game has you finding a job at a job center. So it's just like there's such a mind-blowing range of different things that you're doing in this story. Just really, 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 really well done. And the world itself has a certain atmosphere to it that I really loved. Like when I would go, there's certain interiors that you could go to in the open world, like pharmacies or restaurants. When I walk in, Ichiban walks in, those stores seem kind of small around him. Like, Ichiban seems big and tall, and I like that kind of vibe that it goes for, those brightly lit pharmacies. Like, the world of Yokohama is fun to explore, all the restaurants and everything like that. Like, this game is a real treat to play. It really feels like a second life within this video game. Like, I live a second life in Yakuza Like a Dragon. What an amazing experience. I can't really wait to get back to it. Yakuza Like a Dragon, probably one of the... I don't remember playing much JRPGs, but this might be my favorite JRPG. It could also be the only one I've ever played. I'll have to go back and check in my gaming history, but this is turning me onto a genre that I was never really big on, and now I'm really, really into it. And, these games are really, really, really long. They're huge commitments, but they're so good. Like, the story is incredible. Everything about it, those bonds with your crew, your friendship, building it up at the Survive bar with karaoke and just drinks. You build your literal bond stat in the game that lets you kind of do different things in the game. There's so many systems at play, too. This is a true RPG, even though there's a predetermined character and everything like that. Like, this is a true RPG. There's a million different systems going on. The charisma system. I believe there's romance as well. There's like characters that you can only talk to if you have a certain charisma level stat. So stat level. So it's just like this game is amazing. What an amazing world to explore. Combat, the story, the characters, the side missions. I can't gush enough about Yakuza Like a Dragon, but I'm going to have to stop because we have to move on to number 6. And that is going to be Kentucky Route Zero. Kentucky Route Zero is a indie game and one of the shining definitions of what a games as art is. It's made by a very small team called Cardboard Computer. It was announced all the way back in, I believe, like 2013 or something. It took years and years and years, released in different parts. But yeah, like it is one of those like wow games of this is an indie game through and through. It's a point and click adventure. You're playing as Conway, and you play as different characters throughout. But you start off as Conway, and basically your job as Conway is to deliver this package to 5 Dogwood Drive. It seems like a simple task, but it's not so simple because this world that Conway lives in is not a simple world. It is very much this magical kind of modern day fantasy world where the weirdest things happen. Like, for example, you go in Act 2, it's split into different acts, 5 acts with interludes in between, short little interludes in between. In the second act, you go to an office building, and on the 3rd floor, or whatever floor it is, there's bears, like a bear habitat that you can just walk around in. Like, it's that kind of... There's a river, and there's a giant boat with a mechanical mammoth on it that kind of does the roar. Like, this game... I don't know how to explain it. You think I know how to explain it? I don't know. Like, there's these crazy things. And what's so cool about it is all these wacky, crazy things are going on, and the characters act like it's totally normal. Like that factor alone, like they're it's like, oh yeah, like they don't even mention it. They don't mention these things that go on. It's totally normal. It's totally normal for these skeleton beings, glowing skeletons, to be walking around a distillery, right? Like they're just living skeletons. Like they don't question anything. These characters don't question anything, and so like everything becomes normalized in this world. Like it's so cool. I don't know what the word is, but there's a definition of that. But like it's such a mind-blowing experience. This journey to deliver this package to 5 Dogwood Drive, right? You start as Conway. You meet different characters on the way that they become kind of your entourage. Like your party grows bigger and bigger the more characters you meet along the way, right? So now you meet this woman named Shannon in Act 1. Okay, now she's going along with you because she's like, all right, I'll tag along. She's going to help you deliver this package. Then you run into this little boy named Ezra, and Ezra's going to tag along part of your journey. Then you run into these 2 characters named Johnny and Junebug in, I think, Chapter 3. And, okay, they're going to join the party. Then you run into these other characters named Will on that tugboat that I mentioned. Like, these characters just accumulate around Conway as he moves through the game's overall story. And it's just like you're going through, and your party grows bigger and bigger to the point where Conway isn't around in Act 5 anymore, and these characters are still, this entourage that he's built around him is still going ahead trying to deliver that package to 5 Dogwood Drive, which becomes this kind of, I'm not going to spoil Act 5, but it becomes like this fascinating thing of like, what is Dogwood Drive? Does Dogwood Drive even exist? Like, why does Dogwood Drive look like that? What's going on? Like, there's so many interpretive things going on here that it lets me, the player, interpret it as I like. This game is an everlasting gobstopper of weird things, just art, game as art, that I just chew on. I play it, I experience it, and I just chew on all of the mysteries, and I just think about them, and it fascinates me. Kentucky Route Zero, like that entourage of characters that goes with him, the things that happen along the way. There's a giant horse in a gas station, like at the beginning of the game. Like, what the hell? Why is there a giant horse head here? And like, it's just the design of, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like such an incredible experience. Kentucky Route Zero. Yes, the gameplay is slow. It's a slow burn for sure, but I think it's worth it to experience that story, the characters, how they interact. It's a text box game, so there's no voice. You're scrolling through the text, choosing different dialogue options along the way for each character. Like, it's, oh my god, like this game is art. It's the most art game on this list, and I love art-like games. Like, this may be one of the most game as art games I've ever played, and I love it. Like, I don't know how much longer can I gush about Kentucky Route Zero. This is something that needs to be experienced yourself. Like, and then there's the interludes that kind of foreshadow different characters, some of the new characters that are going to be introduced to you in the following acts. Like, it is, I don't know what else to say. The art style is gorgeous. That kind of weird, fantastical mystery vibe that it gives off is fascinating. The breadth of the story, like I said, I talked about with the Yakuza, that kind of legacy thing. Like, I started here and look at us now. Now we're this group of 8 people, and we've gone through so much together along this journey. Where are we going to end up? Like, that kind of storytelling is so well done here. Kentucky Route Zero is a special indie game. I cannot give it enough props. Shout out to Cardboard Computer. for Kentucky Route Zero. Game took a long time to make, like a decade almost to make. Incredible game, Kentucky Route Zero. But I must move on to number 5, and my number 5 is going to be Desperados 3. Now, this is a game that really flew under the radar, I think probably because of the genre. It's a isometric stealth game set in the Wild West. So it's kind of reminds me of what an isometric Assassin's Creed game would be like. You're sneaking around, going through bushes, you're taking out enemies, you're distracting guards, and this is the Wild West, so you have weapons, so you could shoot your way through these areas. But the weapons, I'll talk about them later, because they do have a sound radius where they'll alert the guards. So this is basically a kind of stealth your way through, and the game's story is pretty good. You start off as this character named Cooper, and along your journey you meet 4 other characters along the way, each with their own unique skills, abilities, gadgets, stuff like that. So, like, for example, you meet in like the early levels, you meet a doctor named McCoy, and he has a silenced sniper rifle. He has a bag that can, if he throws it out into the open and a guard sees it, these guards operate on vision cones, by the way. Like, if you move your mouse over a guard, you'll see their vision cone, and you'll see it move. And I'll talk about vision cones later on, but yeah, McCoy has this bag and he throws out, and if a guard sees it, the guard will walk towards the bag, open the bag, and then something will, I think like a poison gas or something, will shoot out of it, and he'll be stunned for a couple seconds, which will allow one of your other characters to go, or McCoy, if whoever's around, to go and finish him off in the open, and then drag him back into the bushes. So yeah, that's part of what McCoy's kind of play style is. He's very slow. Like Cooper can pick up bodies and like kind of walk at a normal walking speed with them, while McCoy can't pick up bodies. He kind of drags them, and it's a lot slower. So different characters, like there's a character named Hector who can pick up like two bodies at once and actually run full speed with them. So like the placement of where your characters are hidden around at a certain time can dictate, what you plan to do in terms of cleaning up the dead bodies, because it would be ideal to have Hector around for cleanup most of the time, because he's really, really quick at it. He's like the big, strong guy. He has a bear trap that he can lay around. He has a double-barrel shotgun that has a really, really loud sound radius, so you got to be careful about where you use that. Mostly on the, pretty useful on the outskirts of areas where there's not too many guards around that could hear it. Another character, I forget her name, but she has a disguise. It's like this dress that she could put on, and then she could go and walk through areas right in front of guards without any problem. Like, so you get like vision, like immunity, you're just like a civilian at that point with the disguise on, and you could walk anywhere. You don't have to worry about vision cones or anything. And one of my favorite abilities in the game is she can go, and if there's a guard with a vision cone that's blocking an area that you need your other characters to pass through, she can go to that guard and talk to them and turn their vision cone away permanently. Well, not permanently, as long as she stays talking to them. So you could just set it up where you take the vision cone and you point it in a different direction by spinning the guard by talking to the guard as her, and allowing your other characters to sneak on through. And of course, they don't sneak on through automatically. You have to switch to and move each character on your own. Like, it's not an AI thing or anything. Yeah, like that's probably my favorite. And then later on, I think she gets an ability to actually lure guards away from a short distance away from areas. So you could lure a guard, because she can only knock guards out, and then you'll need one of the other characters to come and finish the guard off when he's like knocked down on the ground temporarily. So she could lure guards to other characters who could then actually kill the guard and hide them away. So like you wouldn't need your, like Hector, for example. He wouldn't be able to go out in the open and grab that guard over there, but you could get Kate to go over and distract the guard and lure the guard over to where Hector's hiding, knock the guard out, and then have Hector finish him off and drag him into the bush. So like there are so many different ways to do things in this game. It's just such a puzzle of like, I have all of these tools, all of these abilities. How do I use them? How do I use these characters to get through this level? How do I take out these guards using the character's abilities and toolboxes in the best way possible? There's another, the fifth and final character that you meet, Isabel, and she's like this kind of voodoo. She has this voodoo magic where she can link two different guards, kill one guard, and then the guard that's linked to that guard also gets killed. And so you'll have to like kind of clean both of them up, but like it's a super effective way of, you know, taking out guards, linking them together so you could take them both out by only killing one. She also has a cat that she could set she could go tell to go distract an enemy for a couple of seconds. So while the enemy is distracted and looking down at the cat and petting it, that guard's vision cone shrinks to like just a little small area, and then you'll be able to run across to where that guard's vision cone usually would be. And also she has mind control. So at the cost of one of her health bars, she can mind control an enemy, and you have full control of that guard, walk them wherever you want to walk them, and you could even shoot other guards with that mind control guard. So like, yeah, and she also has the ability to heal herself as well. So there's such a great combination of different ways to go about things, and I love the layout of the areas too. Like each level is really, really meaty, like to the point where some of those later levels are like daunting. They're so huge, and you could, at the very beginning of a level, you could move the camera wherever you want to, so you could go scout out the entire map. And some of those later levels are just ginormous. But I love how in each level there are different areas that seem to like flow with each other, like in terms of where the guard placements are, right? So there may be like this little saloon here, and then like around the corner, like down the street, there's another guard heavy area over there. So like I just really love the level design of this game. You know, for a stealth game like this, with all of those tools and all those characters with their different abilities and whatnot, having a stellar level design like that is just really awesome. And part of why I loved this gameplay is some areas are really tough to crack. Like there's guards everywhere. There are vision cones, which, by the way, you could only see one guard's vision cone at a time, right? So you can't see them all at once laid out. I guess that would be a little bit too easy, because then the safe paths would be automatically pointed out to you, but it's limited to you can only see one guard's vision cone at a time, you know, when you go and use the cursor to kind of hover over them. And maybe there is a setting in the game, I don't know, that lets you see multiple cones at once. I didn't look at that at all, but it's the default setting that only one at a time. But I like getting to this fortress of an area and being like kind of overwhelmed at first, but then I start picking off, you know, I pick off one guard, and then that makes it a little bit easier to pick off the next guard and then the next guard, and all of a sudden, I'm in this area and I crack the code, and it was so cool to, like, you know, this area seems so insurmountably guarded with vision cones everywhere, guards up high, down low, and, you know, a while later, here I am with it completely empty because I killed everybody in full stealth. You know, and by the way, when you get caught, you enter kind of like this combat thing, where the guards will actually begin shooting at you, and you actually have health bars. So it seems like the game is kind of designed to let you fight back when guards find you out. You know, when you're caught in 4K, when you're caught red-handed. But I personally, if I got caught, I just let them kill me, and I just started over because I wanted to do it. I wanted to do everything cleanly, and I don't feel like this game is marketed as a kind of real-time strategy game, but in terms of combat, I see where that can apply in terms of the stealth gameplay, because everything is in real time. But in terms of like open combat, I just don't feel like it's strong enough to really be a good kind of like combat action game. So I just kind of let them kill me, and I'll respawn seconds earlier from when I got caught, because I wanted to do everything cleanly. And that's just how I wanted to play. Additionally, there is the quick save button is actually a part of the gameplay, because a lot of this game is you're setting your characters up in positions to strike, and there is a showdown mode where, by the way, a side note, there's the showdown mode where you can assign characters targets, right? So you could have Cooper aim at one guard, you could have Hector aim at another guard, and it doesn't have to be just guns. Like Cooper has a throwing knife that you could use it with too. You could tell a character to go pick up that dead guard and move him into a bush. So you could do an amalgamation of different things with the showdown mode, but for the sake of me explaining it, so for example, like Cooper you could set Cooper to shoot one guard, Hector to shoot another guard, McCoy to snipe another guard, and at the press of a button, they all do those actions simultaneously. So like that's the showdown mode. That's a really fun way to do it. Think of like in Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, that sync shot kind of, where you set the targets and then you press the button to initiate the attack. So those moments were a lot of fun to set up. And there were a couple of those moments where I used almost every character's gun in an area, right? So I had say there's like 8 guards, right? I had Cooper can use both of his revolvers at the same time. So I had 2 guards. I had Cooper aimed at 2 guards. I had Hector, his shotgun blast aimed at a group of guards that were standing next to each other. I had McCoy aimed at a far away guard, and then Kate also has a small pistol as well. So I had her aim at another guard, and I just hit the button, and all of those guards just poof, gone. It was that kind of thing was awesome. But yeah, so like the quick save button is really such a part of the gameplay. Like you want to be quick, and it's one button, and it takes like a second or maybe 2 to quick save and done. Like you don't have to open a menu or anything. It's just one button, quick save. And I found myself, like the game really encourages you. It actually pops up a kind of timer on the screen reminding you, like about every minute or 2, hey, quick save right now. So the game actually, and you could probably turn that off, but the game keeps reminding you over and over again, hey, quick save, or else you're going to be, you're going to be moved back further than you want if you get caught or die here. So like that kind of thing is really, really cool. Like I found myself quick saving after almost every time I moved a character to a different position. The smallest adjustment in my character's placements or actions, always quick save. I got in that habit of doing that. And there were some times where I got caught in a bad quick save, so I had to revert to an older one. But yeah, Desperados 3, the story is pretty good too. It's a basic revenge story, but I like the characters and how they kind of band together, form this kind of closely knit group, with some of them having tensions with others. Yeah, like the relationship between Hector, the big guy with the shotgun and bear trap, and Cooper. A couple of flashbacks that go back to their relationship, how they met each other when Cooper was a young boy and Hector was working for the big bad guy that we were hunting down. Yeah, I mean, like the story and characters, the character development was really, really well done. And of course, that stealth, the level design, oh my god, like I had so much fun It's just a fun game. It's very slow. Each of these levels, there's like a good 15 or 16 of these levels split up into like a couple of 3 or 4 acts. A lot of them take like an hour and a half to 2 hours, and I go through very slow, so it definitely varies. But like I remember taking so long. Some of those levels took like 2 hours to get through, but it never felt like a slog to me. Like, it was always fun, always interesting, because that level design was fun. Figuring out, it's like a puzzle game, figuring out, how do I get through this area? How do I take out, which guard should I take out first here? Should I take out the guard up high? Should I maybe go sneak around? Let's get Kate in the disguise to go and walk around the area, maybe distract a couple guards, turn their vision codes around in different to point in different directions to let my characters advance, like that kind of stuff. And by the way, I think I mentioned it, that distractibility, Kate's distractibility, is definitely my favorite, because you get to actually manipulate the vision cones of the guards and where they're looking. But the thing is, with that ability though, there are these long coat guards, where they're like the big burly guards. They're like the captains. The long coats can actually, if Kate gets stuck in a long coat's vision cone, the long coats will grow suspicious of her and then like kind of go after her and hunt her down. So you could use Kate, but like if there's a long coat in the area, you're gonna want to maybe not, be careful about where you're using her with. But if there's no long coat in an area, you could turn a guard. You could distract a guard indefinitely, as long as she's talking to that guard. I loved each character's abilities. Again, each level, and I love the kind of the different biomes almost. Of you start off in the desert, then you go into a little bit more of like the farms and the foresty areas, and then you eventually go into I believe New Orleans. So like there's the city, kind of dark, dreary, rainy city kind of levels. Like it's just so well done. So well done. And not just in the gameplay department, like I said, the story, the characters. But damn, what a fantastic game. The first game of its kind that I have ever played. I've never played an isometric stealth game like this before. Ever. Like I kind of felt like I was opening up my horizons, because I would absolutely play another isometric stealth game like this in a heartbeat. This was made by a developer called Me Games. I think they made a game called Shadow Complex that was kind of popular a couple back in the day, but like they're on my radar, because I loved this game, and I would play the next game in a heartbeat. Desperados 4. So that's Desperados 3. Probably one of the best stealth game of the year, obviously, Desperados 3. But it's time to move on to number 4. That's going to be a little game called Doom Eternal. That's right. So the sequel to the 2016 reboot of Doom, Doom Eternal. Like, I don't even know how to begin to speak about this game, because all of it is just awesome. Like, I don't think there is a part of this game that isn't awesome. What can I say here? It's all about that first-person action shooting. The sheer weapon, it's just like a toolbox of all these huge, powerful weapons, from the rocket launcher, the super shotgun, of course, with now a meat hook that acts like a grappling hook that hooks onto enemies and drags Doomguy towards them. The assault rifle, the BFG, which stands for big fucking gun. Like, this arsenal is awesome. They also have the Unmaker, which is unlockable like towards the end of the game. This game is just badass. It's like, what the hell? Doomguy, his design from the 2016 game has changed drastically. Now he has an arm blade that really you could only use during glory kills, but it's still like really, really fucking cool. He has a shoulder launcher that can launch grenades, and the flame belch, which comes in handy, in the kind of dance of the game that I'll get to soon. He has his biceps exposed. Like, his design has been cranked up to level 11 badassery. Like, it's just awesome. Like, he is one of the coolest video game characters ever. In Doom Eternal, his new design is just even cooler than any of his other iterations. But yeah, I spoke a little bit about that dance of combat. Doom Eternal has this kind of dance to it where there are different things that you could do in the heat of a battle, right? Where obviously the glory kills, they give you health. Chainsawing enemies gives you a bunch of ammo, and now the flame belch from that shoulder launcher, when you use that on enemies, they'll spit out the green armor plates, and they'll keep spitting out those armor plates until you kill them, and that killing blow to that demon, they'll explode in even more armor plates, and you'll get armored up there. So like those three elements of recharging your health, your ammo, and your armor really come into play in such a nice way. It's not just about, kill everything. It's also about, I have to make sure I am, filled up on the things that I need, right? Do I need a little bit of ammo? All right, let me go chainsaw. Do I need a little bit of health? Let me kind of pick away at the smaller demon to try and get the glory kill state on him so I can move in for that glory kill and get some health. Or is my flame belch charged up? I need a little bit of armor here. Let me let that loose on a group of enemies that are close together to get the maximum amount of armor out of it. Like that kind of dance. It's not just about trying to kill. It's also about keeping yourself alive, keeping yourself filled up on the resources that you need to go kill all those demons, because it can get really, really hectic. There are some challenge rooms in this game that can get really, really tough. A lot going on. Obviously, the name of the game in Doom is to keep moving, always keep moving, no matter how little ammo you have or health or armor. Just as long as you keep moving, you could find ways to, while you're trying to move around, to try and pick off at smaller enemies, try and get a glory kill here or there. But as long as you're moving constantly, you will find success in this game. And it's that energy of the game encouraging you to stay moving all the time that makes this game one of the best first-person shooters ever. Like, unlike a game like, let's say, a Call of Duty game, you're really, you're running and gunning, but like, when your health gets low, you drop behind cover or whatnot. Here, when your health gets low, you are still moving around constantly. If you stand still, you're done for. So I love that dance of combat, like keeping mobile no matter what was incredible. I think the story here was interesting enough. That kind of opening cutscene of Doom Guy getting ready on his kind of ship base. I forget what it's called, but he has like the ship base that's in the orbit of Earth. And by the way, the ship base, and then you could see a giant pentagram on the side of the Earth from space. Like, that shit was awesome. Like the art direction, the visuals of this game were through the roof. And that opening kind of cutscene where he's getting ready, loading up his shotgun, putting on that helmet, and then walking through the portal to Earth was just wow. Like that kind of shit was awesome. There are such a nice variety of locations. It's not just all hellscape all the time. I remember Doom 2016 pretty much was just, you're in hell. It was just hellscape all the time. Here, it takes place on Earth, so you get some of those, Earth. You're in like some cities that have been ravaged by the demons. Then you go to Mars, or not on Mars. You go in Mars, but you go like around Mars where you blew the hole open. There's like this debris that you're climbing on and everything in one of those levels. Then you go to kind of the home world of the Doom Guy, the Doom Slayer, where you kind of learn a little bit about how he became the Doom Slayer. And then you go into like this kind of towards the end of the game, you go into this kind of heavenly world. I'm blanking on all of these names because they're so weird. They have really weird names to them. I'll probably put them up on screen as I'm talking about each one. But yeah, this like kind of heavenly place where you face this kind of they're called the Makers, and they're this kind of heavenly, magical floating beings, like these ancient gods of some sort. But yeah, like I love the variety of it's not just hellscape all the time. There's such clear visual differences in each of the different locations that you travel to in the adventure. I mentioned the story. Yeah, the story is not anything special by any means, but it's solid. It's a solid story. I found it a little bit disappointing that a lot of the lore is hidden in the kind of collectible readings that you could find throughout the levels. I felt like I wanted more of that to be included in the main story. And then there are the boss battles too. Like I remember there's one boss battle on Doom Guy's homeworld where it's this giant beast with a huge shield and like swinging maces, like that kind of thing. It was like an arena style fight, and you could hear like demons that are watching or whatever watch the battle between you and this giant shield beast. And then there's the Icon of Sin at the end of the game, which was a really, really awesome fight. I'm not going to really spoil much of that, but it's Doom. What's going to happen. Fighting the Maker boss was also difficult. Really difficult. It's a kind of floor is lava situation going on there, where you have to find a way to stay in the air somehow as you do what you need to do to the boss. But yeah, like such an amazing game. And of course there are all new demons. Like there are a ton of new demons. There's a Mancubus that's covered in armor, where if you blood punch, and this is part of that dance too of prioritizing targets, right? As you're keeping your resources full, you're all right, let me see what enemies are on the field, right? There's a armor covered Mancubus. Let me get up to him. I have a blood punch charged up. I could punch his armor. I'll knock all of his armor off in one blood punch. So like I should prioritize that. Or there's a summoner demon, which I forgot the name of. It's one of the brand new ones, where he summons more powerful, faster, more vicious demons, and he has this giant fire shield in front of him. So I need to prioritize that demon first. Like there are these prioritizations that you're making as you're going through. Like they're like demons that you need to take out first, or else you'll be overwhelmed. Yeah, so there's that. And then there are the whiplash demons, which are a pain in the ass. There's like they're like these kind of snake-like things that they're very elusive. So like I tended to use the super shotgun on them just to try and nail them down, but they come at you viciously, and they're really tough to track and take care of, those whiplash ones. And then the big one is the Marauder. That Marauder, he's the one with the axe and the giant horns and everything. He kind of is wearing that armor that looks kind of like the Doomslayer's armor. There's a story reason for that. But those Marauders are really, really cool. A lot of people have been frustrated by them because the only way to deal actual damage to them is to wait for their eyes to glow green right before they attack you with the axe, right? So you have to kind of get in that mid to close range of them and wait for that flash of his green eyes. And then you have to hit him with a weapon. I use the super shotgun on him. Hit him right when you see that flash, and boom, he'll be staggered for a second, and you'll get that damage in on him. If you try and shoot him with at any other time, it's not gonna. You're gonna do zero damage to him. And he has like this kind of annoying these fire dogs that come at you. And he also has a super shotgun of his own as well. That is kind of annoying as you try and find that range to be in to wait for that those green eyes to flash. But the Marauder is cool, and it's not just one boss fight, right? It appears to be you encounter the first Marauder kind of like midway through the game, and it seems like that's a boss fight. But then you see Marauder. He's not the only Marauder. There are others that you come to face during the levels later on. I think you might even face two of them at once at some point. all those new demons are really, really super well designed. Like, they're so smartly designed. You know, when a Marauder is in a battle, you want to kind of focus on the other demons first, because with a Marauder, you kind of have to stay locked on him and really pay attention to his eyes in order to actually deal damage to him. So, like, it's kind of, you know, trying to focus on him with other demons around is kind of difficult, because while you're trying to stand still in that range to look for his eyes, you're getting pelted from all these other demons. So, you know, with the Marauder's case, you know, that's not a priority target like the other ones are, like the Arc Demon is, or the Armored Mancubus, right? Getting that blood punch in. Like, so, like, there are different, it's like a chessboard almost. Like, look, you have to kind of scan the area, scan the demons that are coming at you, and kind of realize which ones are the priority, right? Which ones do I need to deal with now, and which ones should I wait for later until it's a little bit more clear that I could focus on them to actually deal damage. That's the Marauder, of course. Like, so I love that dance of evaluating your enemies around you and doing everything in the correct order so that you have the best chance to succeed. That's such a big part of Doom Eternal's, like, gameplay loop. And I love not only I mentioned those different kind of location settings, the really interesting differences in the locations, that variety, but also I love that this game has insanely good level design. You know, I loved looking for the collectibles. Yeah, I loved just the layout of the levels. I loved the platforming, by the way, that first-person platforming, you know, climbing walls, jumping off walls, and doing the swing bars, and I love that traversal part of the game as well. I didn't love the swimming. There's not too much of it. There's a little bit of it here or there. But I loved figuring out those kind of traversal puzzles, you know, how to drop this wall to be able to climb that, and it'll move over there. Like, you know, yes, the combat is the star of the show, but I loved that traversal, like the air dashes. You get to dash in the air with the dash tokens, and like everything like that is so well done. Everything like that, like the level design in that regard is awesome. But what I also love about it is there are these kind of big arena areas, these kind of areas where, okay, you can't progress until you clear this big arena type area. And I like that there are those huge areas, but also in between, the hallways in between, there are a healthy peppering of demons available to shoot on the way to those bigger areas too. I loved that part of it as well. Like, it keeps you engaged throughout. It's not just, okay, big arena area and then puzzle hallway, big arena area, puzzle hallway. It's big arena area and then puzzly traversal stuff with demons sprinkled in until you get to the next big arena combat area. Like, I love that kind of design of these levels. Is really, really well done. And then there's the battle mode, which is the kind of multiplayer thing. I know 2016 did a more team-based, kind of almost a Call of Duty style, like deathmatch and those kinds of that kind of a multiplayer suite. But this year in Doom Eternal, it's battle mode, this kind of 2v1. It's two demons versus one slayer. The slayer is tasked with killing the two demons, and the demons are tasked with killing the slayer. The demons also have the ability to spawn in other demons. There are already a base level of demons on there, but you could spawn in special demons like Keiko demons. You could spawn in, Hell Knights and stuff like that. So it's not just, the 2v1. It's actually more like 30v1 if you get into the AI demons and the spawnable demons as well. So it does play more like a traditional, at least from the Slayer's perspective, it plays a lot more like a campaign, like arena type area of a level. But yeah, I mean, I thought battle mode was cool. I didn't think it felt more like a novelty thing, right? Like I didn't see it becoming the next Overwatch for me or the next Apex Legends. Like, it didn't have that kind of power to really hook me in like that. But it was cool. It was fun while I played it. It's like I had fun as the demons because you did, have the ability to spawn in, and make the Slayer's life much more miserable with how you spawned in different demons and everything like that. I did feel that though, the demon's weapons didn't feel nearly as good as like the Slayer's weapons, for example. Like the demons that you get to play as are Marauder, Revenant, a Mancubus, stuff like that. Like, for example, the Marauder's weapons did not feel very good. First of all, the axe is not an actual melee weapon. It just fires these red... When you swing it, it fires off red projectiles at the Slayer. And he has the super shotgun in the left hand, which does not feel nearly as good as the Slayer's super shotgun. So, like, I don't know. Like, I don't think the demons, like, actual weapons felt very good at all. It was more so the fun of spawning in different demons. But yeah, I mean, battle mode was all right. It was cool. Nothing special. Fun for a little while. There are different kind of loadouts and things you could bring in to each match. But it's cool. It's nothing to write home about. But obviously with Doom Eternal, it's all about that campaign. All about the campaign. It was nailed. They nailed that campaign. So yeah, Doom Eternal is awesome. One of the best first-person shooters like ever, actually. So well done. But I need to move on now to number 3, though. And this may come as a surprise, but my number 3 is Cyberpunk 2077. And I know, you may be saying, John, what are you doing? That game is a mess. It's a garbage fire. It sucks. It's buggy. The performance is horrible. What are you doing putting Cyberpunk 2077 at number 3, let alone anywhere on this list? What the hell are you doing? And to that I say, yes, this game has a lot of problems. A lot. From bugs, and I'll talk about some of these bugs. From bugs to actual gameplay choices, game design choices, to performance. The performance I played it on a base Xbox One. I know all about the performance and the frame rate. 15 frames per second. I know. But that storytelling, those characters, the side missions, the romances, it's the sheer narrative prowess that this game contains inside of it, for me, outweighs almost all of those technical problems that the game has. Almost. Right? It was actually pretty balanced, right? Like, yes, the story is incredible. The characters are incredible. Maybe the best narrative of the year, honestly. But those downsides, those technical problems, did drag it down a bit. I think if it wasn't for all of those problems, if the game came out and it ran at an acceptable frame rate, if it had an acceptable resolution, if it came out and didn't have all of those bugs, I think I'm looking at my game of the year. But it had all that stuff, and I played it with all that stuff, and therefore it made number 3, but I just could not put it any higher than number 3 for those reasons. Yes, I'll get the negatives out of the way first. The frame rate, it runs at 3 frames per second. It's a slideshow almost, and that kind of ruined the combat for me. Like and I'll talk deeper on the combat, but that frame rate is horrible. The resolution wasn't there. I didn't have a lot of the texture pop-in problems that people were complaining about online. Luckily, like, I didn't experience a lot of texture pop. Some in a once in a blue moon, but like the main issue technically for me was that frame rate and the resolution just not being anywhere near acceptable. So I have to trash the game for that. And yet, before you come at me like it's a next-gen game, no, it's not. It's not a next-gen game. It came out on Xbox One. The next-gen version of the game is not even out. So therefore, it's not a next-gen video game. Okay? Like, it was designed to be played on an Xbox One or a PS4. And PC, obviously. Okay, so before you come at me with it's a next gen game, no, has been marketed and released as a Xbox One PS4 game. The top of the game box that I have says Xbox One, not Xbox. Like it says, it's not Xbox Series X or S or whatever. It's Xbox One, and that's the only version on console that's available now. Was old gen. So before you come at me like that, no. But then there are all the bugs too. Not just visual bugs. Like sometimes when I put a gun away, that reticle for the gun stays up instead of it reverting back to like the default dot reticle. So like that stuff like that was weird. There are a lot of also audio bugs. There were three. I call them the three audio sins of Cyberpunk 2077. The first one was there's some stealth options in this game, and you could crack people's necks when you're in stealth. When I would crack somebody's neck and kill an enemy in an area, I would hear that cracking sound again and again in that area. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's my character stepping on glass, and maybe that's the sound. No, it's the neck cracking sound. So I'd crack an enemy's neck, hide them away or whatever. And as I'm exploring more of that area, I keep hearing that cracking sound over and over again in while I'm still in that area. So there's that. Then there is as you're playing the game, you have kind of characters pop up on the top left of your screen with their kind of like a video call, and you hear their voice. They're talking to you. I would have sometimes more than one character at a time pop up at the same time. At one time, I actually had 3 different characters all pop into my comm call, completely unrelated, and they were all talking over each other at the exact same time, and they were all in the bubble, and I could see them moving, because like it's not just a picture of them in the top left, it's like a little video of them. So as they were moving around, I saw the other 2 characters that were popped in the call also moving behind them. So that was really fucking weird. Like there were all 3 of them talking to me at once, and I would get the double ups quite often actually. So that's the second sin of audio and visual problems. Then the biggest bug that I've experienced in the game was all in-game music ceasing to exist. Right, so I went a good stretch, a good 2, maybe 3 hours, somewhere in the middle or towards the end of the game, where I noticed that my car radio is no longer playing any music. No matter what channel I switch it to, it just doesn't play music. So I figured, maybe I'll switch cars or whatever, or I'll destroy this car and get a new one. None of that worked. Later on, like a couple hours later, I went to there was like a rooftop party with people, NPCs dancing and having a good time, but no music. So it was at that point that I realized, this isn't just a car radio thing. All in-game music in this game is no longer existing. These NPCs are dancing to absolutely nothing. So, that was like the third sin, was for a couple good hours, 2 to 3 hours of my playtime in this game had no in-game music. So that was really weird, and I had to actually power cycle my Xbox One. So I power cycled it, unplugged it from the wall, plugged it back in, restarted it, rebooted it, loaded up the game, and boom, there was the music. So I shouldn't have to power cycle my console for the in-game music to actually exist. So that's a huge problem, and hopefully they fixed it by now. But that actually was a bug that really, really, really started annoying me. The second hour without car music, there's a lot of driving in this game. I was just driving around kind of accepting that my car radio was broken, but it was all silent, and I wanted to hear the music, but I couldn't. And I was kind of getting frustrated having to drive around without the radio working. And then I realized, oh, all in-game music is dead. And I had to restart my console for it to come back. So, like, that really actually started to annoy me, because I was like, wow, I'm experiencing a large portion of this game without music. And that really kind of got to me there. But, like, a myriad of other bugs that I'm not even really going to get into. Like I said earlier about the frame rate, the combat in this game, I think I didn't like it probably because of that frame rate. I did not like the first-person shooting. It was decent at times, but it just felt, especially the pistols early on, the pistols sucked. Like, what the hell was that? You know, like, I just, not a fan of the first-person combat in this game. The melee combat isn't much better, really. I like the Mantis Blades, but even those weren't that fun to use. You just mash the button and your character just swings it left and right. But, you know, the combat was okay, and I think if the frame rate was actually acceptable, I would have liked the combat a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, there's a decent amount of guns. I personally hated the menus and the inventory screens. I thought they were really, really messy and not good. I feel like I would pick up an item with a certain number on it, and when I go check on that item in my menus, it would have like a different number, or I would have trouble finding it. Like, the UI in the menus is just not good. So I really disliked all of that. Like, it's not designed in a way to... I don't know how to explain it. It's a while since I played the game now, but, like, I found it... it was always a nightmare to try and find a specific weapon or item in that menu. It was just not very good. There's the hacking system. I didn't take a huge advantage of it. Turned off some cameras here or there. But, you know, I wasn't falling in love for that hacking system at all. I stuck to stealth. I also just didn't feel like stealth was really necessary. I just didn't care about being stealthy a lot of the times. I was just like, you know what, what's the point? Let's just get this over with. I could clear out this room easily anyway. Just go and fuck them up and be done. Be done with it. You know, why am I wasting my time trying to be sneaky when I could just kill everybody on the spot without an issue at all? Yeah, and then there's like some game design choices. One of the things I hated was all of the fixers in the game, which are like the kind of they handle like the jobs, I guess, of the underground, of the crime world. These fixers calling me like every couple of minutes with cars that I don't even want. You know, I'm not interested in buying. I have I stuck with V's like main car. Like, I didn't care about all of these calls coming in about cars, right? And the worst thing is all of those car offers were located in the quest log. They're all part of the quest log. So now in my quest log, I have 80 cars that fixers called me about, none of which that I'm interested in actually seeking out or buying, because I don't want to spend my money on a car if my car works fine. You know, it's just like, why do you need to tell me about all of these cars? Why can't there just be... And the other thing is, too, like, in those quest logs, you don't actually see a picture of the car. It's just the name of the car and the location and the price. You don't actually see what the car actually looks like. So I actually, early on in the game, I was like, okay, I want to buy a car. I went to the location, and it was a motorcycle. And I was like, what the hell? I wish I could see the car that I'm actually going to buy, that I'm actually driving out of my way to go and buy, because you have to drive to the location and pay the money. You can't just buy it in the menu. You can't even... That's part of the design problem that I hate. It's like, you're not even seeing the car. Like, how do I know what the fuck this car is in my quest log if I can't see it? I'm not going to go drive to it and roll the dice. What if it's some shitty car or a motorcycle that I don't want? I just wasted, 5 minutes of my life trying to drive to this car. It's a whole thing. Why do they need to call me every time they find a car? That was just the most annoying shit in the game. But yes, a lot of elements of the game just did not roll with me like that. Annoying stuff there, but I think maybe it's time I should start talking about the positives, though, because when I think about that story, Johnny Silverhand and V and their relationship, how it grows and evolves over time, and how you choose to make it grow and evolve, I thought was awesome. I think there are a lot. This is an RPG. There's a lot of talking, a lot of conversations, but each thing is done so well. I remember Fallout 3 is my favorite game ever. And when you talk to characters there, you get that classic zoom. I love it so much. That classic zoom in on their face and then the text box underneath. With this, the text box is very minimalized. It's not big on the screen, but it's not that zoom in. It's the conversations feel very organic in the way that your character can move around while you're in the conversation, and the characters that you're talking to can also move around. They could go lean on a balcony in mid conversation. They could go sit down in a chair mid conversation. Like there's a lot of movement in these conversations that make it feel interesting and dynamic and organic as well. It's not just, oh, I'm talking to this character, they have to stay still now and not do anything. No, they're doing things. They're lighting a cigarette. They're doing something else. They're leaning on the balcony or a wall or whatever. It's very organic like that. I love that about it. It's not just, okay, let's stand still and look at my face as I talk to you. No, it still allows the world around you, that Night City vibe, to bleed into the conversation. It's not just, here's my portrait and look at my face as I'm talking to you kind of thing. So I like that about it. But yeah, that overall story and where it goes at the end, I'm not going to spoil anything at all, but that kind of immortality topic of, would I really want to be immortal? Would I really want my conscience to be saved to the cloud after I'm dead, and all that? Like, such fascinating topics. And of course, Jackie Wells, the characters, Rogue, all well done. What I loved so much as well was the side missions, the side quests in this game, and the characters that you meet. What happens most of the time is you'll meet a character in the main story, and then after that part of their main story is done, they then spin off into their own side quest lines where you get to know them even more, and you get to build your relationship with them to even romance. Like, I remember Pan Am Palmer from the Badlands was one of my favorite characters in the game. Whenever, as I started her side quest line after her role was over in the main story, I was always excited when Pan Am called me and told me that there was a quest to do out in the Badlands again. Come on out over here, and we have this thing we're doing. We're going to steal this truck. Come on out and give us a hand over there. Like, I was always excited to hear from Pan Am Palmer, and it was because I romanced Pan Am. And they really sold that really well. It wasn't cheesy. It wasn't, it was so well done. The relationship between V and Pan Am was probably the best of the game. Like, maybe even better than Johnny's relationship with V, or even Jackie's relationship with V. Those Pan Am Palmer side quests were so just engrossing to me. It was there. I was always hyped to get a call from Pan Am to go out and do something over there in the Badlands. And yeah, like all the other, I remember the character River Ward, the kind of detective character, where you're kind of going and I'm not going to spoil his path, his quest line, but you build such great relationships and friendships and romances with all of these different characters. They're so well written, so well done. That narrative prowess of the game, not just in the main storyline, but all of those side missions, was incredible. And of course, there are those kind of smaller, shorter side missions that are basically just a small encounter. But there are those kind of side quest chains that go on and advance with some of those more important, more prevalent characters in Night City. And then there are gigs, which are basically the gigs I didn't love. They were kind of meaningless. Like, oh, go over there. There's this character that talks you through each one. Oh, here's the intel. They didn't have much story to them like the traditional side quests and main stories. Like these gigs, the person would call you and say, all right, here's this, I'll send you a text message with the details. I never read any of those text messages. I just went to the marker and did the thing, which usually included, killing a cyber psycho or doing some meaningless task, repetitive task over and over again. I didn't really love the gigs in the game. They're not side quests. They're kind of just side activities to go do real quick to kind of boost some money or whatever. They didn't really feel meaningful or impactful like those side quests, like the Pan Am quest line or the river quests or the main story. Which, by the way, some of the characters that you encounter along the path of the main story, I wish they would have had more prevalence. Like, I know they spin off, like Pan Am and River, they both like spin off into their own side quest lines, but I wish they would have kind of stayed in the main story relevance for a little bit longer. I know at the very end you have a chance to give them a call or whatever. But I wish they would have stayed more relevant throughout the main story, other than, oh, here's their part. Their part's over. Okay, now you move on, but here you could do a little quest line. Not a little quest line, a substantial quest line. Like, these side quests are some of the best side quests I think I've ever played in a video game. I know I said that about Yakuza Like a Dragon earlier, but I mean it. Like, these two games, Yakuza and Cyberpunk, holy shit. Some real well written out, well thought out side quests, really well done there. But yeah, like I said, the sheer narrative prowess, I've said it twice already, the narrative prowess of this game is unmatched this year. Best narrative. And of course, like I mentioned, all of those negatives that did drag it down, all, the 10 frames per second, all of that stuff, the resolution, the bugs with the no in-game music really pissed me off. Some of that stuff was really, really annoying. Did not love the combat. But I mean, come on, the conversations that you're having, and the Night City itself was pretty cool. I did not feel like it had much of an atmosphere to it, though. When I think about games with atmosphere, I think about Fallout 3, I think about GTA 5, I think about Fallout New Vegas. Those games, Skyrim, have, or a game from last year's list, The Sinking City, those are thick atmospheres. This game didn't, it feel more like a generic, not generic, but a more universalized, the atmosphere didn't really have an identity of its own. It felt like it didn't feel like, oh, this is a cyberpunk atmosphere. And I think maybe because of the genre is, oh, it's cyberpunk, it's more like a vague open thing rather than this is what we're nailing here. But I just felt like, yes, the world is cool and all the art design and all the cool looking vehicles and guns are really cool. That cyberpunk vibe. I love the music too, by the way. That vibe was cool, but I didn't feel like the atmosphere had much of an identity to it, like Fallout 3, like New Vegas, or The Sinking City or whatnot. Those thick atmospheres. Vampires, another good one from 2 years ago. I just felt like it was lacking in that sense. I did like I love that food stand vibe, or that kind of market cozy feeling of there are different stands everywhere and characters sitting on stools eating food and everything. I love that vibe, and it really nails that. But in terms of the overall atmosphere, it just didn't feel like it had much of an identity. I also felt like in some parts of the city are so bright that it looks like the colors look like Lego pieces. Some of those buildings, just bright orange and blue buildings, look like Lego pieces. It's like little weird there, but overall a very cool city, a cool vibe, and a really awesome game from the narrative standpoint. Again, I think the narrative prowess, when I think about V's story and Johnny Silverhand's story and those flashback sequences when you get to play as Johnny Silverhand, were really fucking cool with his pistol and his silver arm. Oh my god, Keanu Reeves did a fantastic job. And all the voice acting is phenomenal as well. Holy shit. And shout out to Pan Am once again. And all those cool side quests and characters. They nailed a part of this game and didn't nail the other part. which is the technical problems and the bugs and all that, and some choices. Like I said, the menus, the inventory screens, the quest log screens were just not very good. But for me, it was that story that really elevated this game. And just ever so slightly outweighed all the negative things. So that's my number 3, Cyberpunk 2077. Now it's time to move on to number 2. That's going to be Resident Evil 3. Yes, and I know a lot of people didn't love this one, but I really, really loved it personally for reasons that were new to me, and I'll explain later. But I want to talk about this game in terms of my base experience, my very first experience going through it. I think the story was okay. It wasn't anything special. You're playing as, of course, Jill Valentine, and also the character Carlos as well later on. But I loved playing through this game because unlike, I compared it a lot, of course, to Resident Evil 2 last year, which, of course, was my number 2. So this is Resident Evil 2 won my 2 last year, and then this year, Resident Evil 3 earned my number 2 spot. But when I look back to Resident Evil 2, it was very much that police station, that puzzle of a police station, very open-like. With Resident Evil 3, it's much more of a linear experience, which I actually really, really appreciated as a lover. I think I mentioned this earlier, of a lover of linear games. Resident Evil 3 was very linear, and I loved that about it. It's set in, there are a couple of different areas that you start out in that you get to explore, but what I loved about it was the streets of Raccoon City. I love that opening area of finally get to explore the streets of the city with, the movie theater as you run through, and then as it kind of opens up a little bit, that donut shop and the toy store with the giant head. I love those colors, those blues, those yellows, really came through in that section of the game of the streets of Raccoon City. And then you get to go into the sewers, and then you come back out into this courtyard, and then there's the hospital, and then there's the underground lab that you always go to in Resident Evil games. You even get to go into, as Carlos, you get to revisit the Raccoon City police station again. So that was really nice. Like it kind of does a good job of tying in with Resident Evil 2. You get to see Marvin Branagh, that cop, see what happened to him, right? Because Carlos goes into the police station before the events of Resident Evil 2 take place. Obviously, this is before Resident Evil 2, so when you're in the police station, it's before Leon and Claire got there. But yeah, you get to kind of revisit that vibe a little bit of that police station, that kind of atmosphere again. I feel like Resident Evil 2 had a thicker atmosphere to it, but Resident Evil 3, I think probably because you spend most of the game in that police station. Here, it's just a little stint with Carlos in the police station, then you're back out into the hospital, which the hospital I liked. The hospital reminded me of a smaller Raccoon City police station. Because, when you explore it as Carlos earlier, only a certain section of the police station is available to explore and go through, because this is a very linear game, so it keeps that linearity going, even in a location that was very open in Resident Evil 2. When we get to the hospital, though, it did feel like that kind of puzzly area where there are these different doors that need different keys and a cassette tape player to open. So I need to go around and work my way through in this puzzle-like fashion, which I really, really enjoyed. Not as big as the police station, but the hospital was that kind of, let's hunker down a little bit, and this is a little bit of a more open, puzzly-like area instead of the linear stuff that I was used to from the earlier parts of the game. So I really, really like the hospital sequence. Not so much at the end of the hospital sequence. There's this, you have to defend a certain room in the hospital. And there's like windows and everything, and there's generators that you could shoot to make them explode. I didn't love that one because there was waves of zombies coming, and the problem there was when instead of the bodies piling up, the kind of corpses would just shrivel up and disappear, and you could see them like kind of shrink into nothingness, after a couple seconds after you kill them. So that was a little weird decision there, but In a type of situation where you're defending an area against waves of zombies, could become difficult if all the corpses are being left there. But I really, really enjoyed the hospital sequence. I know a lot of people say that Resident Evil 3 felt really short, or it felt like a DLC for Resident Evil 2, but I disagree. At least in my first playthrough, I really took my time exploring all the crevices of the game, and so it took me, like, I think my playtime was like a good 5-ish hours, maybe 6 hours, to go through my first run through. Of course, I didn't know where any of the key items were. I was just exploring naturally. So it felt like a more substantial game that people were letting it on to be. The thing, though, that I loved the most about Resident Evil 3 wasn't the story, it wasn't the areas or the exploration, it was the replayability. Because of it feeling a little bit shorter, it was highly replayable. For the very first time, I kind of fell in love with speed running a video game. With Resident Evil 3, there is a item called the Infinite Rocket Launcher. And it's an unlockable item in like there's like a store in the main menu that you could use tokens that you get from completing challenges in the game that you can use on these powerful items, and one of them is the Infinite Rocket Launcher. And I earned all the achievements in Resident Evil 3. I'll say it right here. I got the 1,000% or 100% rather, because I fell in love with replaying this game with that rocket launcher and just running through. And I noticed, wait a minute, this game took me about 5 or 6 hours the first time around. Now that I know all of the key items that I need to get, I know the golden path of the game, it's only taking me about an hour to start and finish this game. And I realized that, and I realized, wait a minute, this rocket launcher right here is such a great way to just go through the game without needing to look for health or ammo. You know, you're not wasting time looking for health or ammo. You could just run right through because nothing's going to touch you, because you have this infinite rocket launcher that can blow everything away in a second. Even the Nemesis boss on the lower difficulties, you just sit there and spam that rocket, the fight's over in 6 seconds, you know? So like that was really, I was like, wait a minute, I could speed run this game. And not by like doing these weird glitches where you're going through the wall or whatever. I did it legitimately, going through, just golden pathing it, knowing where the items that I need are all the time, just going for those items with the rocket launcher, blasting away everything in front of me, knowing I played this game like 6 or 7 times. You know, I did the original like 5 or 6 hour, and then I realized, wait a minute, I could do this like in an hour at a time. I could beat this game in an hour with the rocket launcher. And I went for all the different difficulty achievements and everything like that with it, because it was just beat the game on this difficulty. Okay, I'll just use the rocket launcher. Boom, done in an hour. But I will say, on the Inferno, Nightmare and Inferno difficulties, that final Nemesis boss fight where you have to push the batteries in the wall, that became a huge problem, because like that he becomes so much more aggressive. And I'll talk about Nemesis later. But yeah, I loved going through and learning where all the key items were, knowing the golden path, learning about how to get through from point A to point B as quickly as possible, right? Especially the hospital section, that I figured out that golden path as well, you know, and how not to wander around like you're looking for things. Just go here, and then done. Like knowing where to put my rockets. You know, oh, I'm going to turn this corner, I'm going to put a rocket on that wall to blow up this zombie, then run past, continue through that door, I'll put a rocket on the top of the ceiling over there to kill that licker over there. Like I memorized where I needed to shoot my rocket in each part of the game, because it is such a short game. At least when I'm speedrunning, it feels really short, and I memorize each and every area, where I need to put a rocket, what I need to do there. You know, oh, there's a couple of zombies that come out from this corner, so at the top of the stairs, just quickly throw a rocket over there and then turn left and move on. Like knowing all of that, learning all of that myself as I played the game over and over again, made me really, really just fall in love with Resident Evil 3 in a way that I never expected to. because I was never really a speedrunner kind of guy. I always love to take my time and everything, but I did take my time on my first playthrough, and I realized, wait a minute, this is fun. Let me get that infinite rocket launcher. Let me burn right through this. Let me get all the difficulty achievements and everything like that. I had such a blast with doing that. I almost enjoy the speedrunning aspect of it a little bit more than I did the traditional shotgun pistol, like I'm going to do this the right way kind of thing. Like that speedrunning aspect that it allowed, I really fell in love with, and that's why it's so high on this list. If it wasn't for that speedrunning, if there was no infinite rocket launcher and the game was a little bit longer, I feel like it may have still made the list, but maybe not as high as number 2. Nemesis was really cool. A lot of people complain that he doesn't really chase you or stalk you like Mr. X does in Resident Evil 2, because in RE2, he does like stalk you relentlessly. I talk about it in depth in last year's video, but Nemesis, he only really pops up during like scripted events. Like he never really, there are a number of chase sequences early on when he's chasing after you through like an alleyway or whatever, but it's all scripted. It's not natural. It's not naturalized. Like it's not as organic as Mr. X, because it's all already scripted out in a linear fashion, which I do appreciate. Like I like the game. Like I don't mind that he's not an organic stalker like Mr. X is. I kind of like that. Okay, it's a script. It's linear. It's, you know, it's going to happen like this every time. I liked that about it. It was predictable, and it made for an amazing speed run. And then, of course, you know, the combat's fun as hell. That over-the-shoulder third-person combat is really fun. You get a dodge roll this time. Or actually, Jill gets the dodge roll, and Carlos gets a shoulder charge. So you could charge into a zombie, knock it down, and kind of finish them off like that. But Resident Evil 3 was just a lot of fun. I love it has a really good score too. Like when Nemesis is chasing you through the streets and alleys of Raccoon City, it has that kind of, you know, like that score to it. It hits every time. It has such an identity to it. That soundtrack, cool cutscenes and everything like that. You know, cool story. Again, the story is nothing special at all. It's kind of basic. It didn't really wow me at all like Cyberpunk's story did. It's not even close to that level of storytelling, but it was decent. You know, I like this game for the gameplay and for the speedrunning aspects. Like I said, that infinite rocket launcher, I loved using. I did love the linearity to it. I know a lot of people hated it. Oh, it's so linear. And Nemesis doesn't, you know, stalk you the right way. You know, and I get that. I understand that. But me personally, my preference is, yes, I loved Resident Evil 2's openness. I truly did. And I loved how Mr. X kind of messed with that dynamic of exploring. But I liked it. It changes it up. It changed it up. It's a linear. I love linear games. I loved scripted cutscenes and scripted events in video games. And this one, the Resident Evil 3 really hit that for me. Definitely one of the most enjoyable games that I played during the year. That's why it's so high on the list. And in terms of if I like this one more than Resident Evil 2, I truly don't know if I liked this more than Resident Evil 2 or vice versa. I like both of them for different reasons, because they're so different. Like, they're very different games in terms of the core design aspect. They're two completely different games. Yes, they're in the same universe and it's the same story. Not the same story, but you know what I mean? A connected story. They look very similar, right? A screenshot would, you know, they look very similar, but they're designed very, very differently. And so I don't know if I like one more than the other. I like them for different reasons, of course. So that's why I loved Resident Evil 3 so much that I put it at my number 2. You know, I played this game like 6 or 7 times, and I never got bored of it. I never got bored of speedrunning this game with that rocket launcher. So kudos to Capcom on making a really great Resident Evil game. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but I personally really, really enjoyed it. Again, for reasons that I never would have expected. So that's Resident Evil 3 at number 2. But now it's time to move on to number 1. and that's going to be a little game called Carrion. That is right. The Devolver Digital published game made by Phobia Game Studios. It's their very first debut game. Carrion is my game of the year. Now, interestingly enough, if I look back 1 year ago to last year, my 2019 list, number 2 was Resident Evil 2 and number 1 was Outer Wilds, a debut indie game as well. And now this year, of course, my number 2 is Resident Evil 3 and number 1 an indie game, studio's very first indie game. So interesting pattern there. Carrion is also the very first 2D game to earn my game of the year. Congratulations, Phobia Game Studio and Devolver Digital on that amazing achievement. So Carrion is such an amazing game. I remember when it was revealed at E3, I think 2018, at the Devolver Digital Big and Fancy press conference. A small clip of it. They called it a reverse horror game, and it had you as this giant red monster, right? This tentacle monster kind of going through and just terrorizing an underground science lab facility. And I thought, that game looks cool. It's probably going to be just about that. You're just going through wrecking shop on this thing. You know, I wasn't expecting it to be as fleshed out as it is in terms of the level design, puzzles. This game has a lot of really, really nice puzzles. It has a pretty cool story. You're going through and you're this red monster. Your number one purpose is to escape the facility by any means necessary. You're figuring it out. You're going to different rooms. Some parts of what I love most about this game, first of all, it's a gorgeous fucking game. Like, look at this game. It's so bright, colorful. You know, I love the animations, you know, when you as the monster are moving through some like grass, like the way the grass moves as you're moving, shuffling by it, like, is really cool. The movement of the monster is like butter, right? Because on screen you're seeing these tentacles moving out. That's just an automatic part of the animation. You're just pressing the stick in any direction and you could go in any direction. Like, you could grab onto the ceiling and just, like, the way you move around this 2D world is just so smooth, right? Like, it's just, you can move the stick anywhere and you will go no matter what surface, no matter if it's a wall or anything. You climb anything. There's no boundary to your physical traversal through the world. I loved I love the jungle parts. I love the kind of, there's like when you go higher up in the facility, you could see like the kind of city skyline in the background. The art direction and the art style in this game is just something to behold, honestly. Like, this is a beautiful game. The art style is so amazing that it gives off a certain atmosphere to it. Like, I want to explore this world more. I want to know more about this world. It reminded me, it gave off some like Pixar vibes almost. Like the atmosphere that this art style and art direction kind of gave off to me. Like, it's such a amazing vibe of a video game. But yeah, like, you are going through, solving a lot of very clever puzzles. The level design in this game is incredible. Now, I do have one problem. My one problem in this game is that there is no map. However, on the flip side, it kind of makes sense because you are a monster trying to just find your way out, and why would a monster have a map or know how to use a map? So, like, that kind of made sense, but it was also kind of a little bit annoying, you know, trying to navigate. I did get lost early on in the game for like a good half hour. I was lost, like, trying to figure out where the hell am I going. You know, I'm going into all these rooms that I've been poking in and out of. None of them seem to have the path forward, checking back and forth in there. But, you know, and there was no map to help guide me. But I feel like I agree with the decision to not have a map, because you are a monster trying to just escape, and, you know, a monster wouldn't really have a map or know how to, you know, interpret one. Although, you know, part of the story is you are a scientist that kind of turned into this monster, but we'll get to the story part later. But yeah, I mean, the level design, and the puzzle design interlaced with that level design is just phenomenal. Like, they are married so well, level design and puzzle design in this game. I do love the system of, so like there are 3 tiers of biomass that you could upgrade to by finding different like canisters or whatever. I love the way you kind of enter the canister and then you shake the stick a little bit until it cracks open, and then boom, you have the new ability. What I love about the system is tier 1 biomass versus your tier 2 biomass. Like, you could use different abilities are locked to each of the 3 levels of biomass, and there are opportunities in the level design, these kind of pools of water that let you kind of shed a biomass, so it will let you access the, let's say you're a level 3 biomass, you can go into the pool, press A to kind of shit yourself out, I guess, remove a part of yourself, so that now you're down to the level 2 biomass and you have access to those level 2 abilities that let you progress further into the game. Like, so there's that clever mix of like, and that those biomasses are linked to your health too. So when you're sacrificing a part of your biomass, you're losing a third of your health bar. So it's like a little bit of a sacrifice, but you need that ability, that level 2 ability, to move on. So you have to leave a part of yourself behind in this pool, and you could come back to it. It's saved up in a little ball, so you could shed the biomass down to level 2 or 1, go do the thing, and then come back and get that health back and get those level 3 abilities back. So that kind of your health bar, this melding together of level design, puzzle design, and your health bar / biomass abilities, having access to different ones via shedding some biomass, like that has such a clever system, and I loved just like terrorizing the scientists in this game too. Like, you're going through and you're just wrecking shop. Like, it's so much fun to hear their screams, and then you rip them apart, you kind of rush at them. Some of them, there are different enemy types. There are the kind of scientists that are unarmed, so you just run right through them. You just destroy them in a second. Then some of them do have pistols, so you kind of have to be quick about it. Then there are enemies that have machine guns, so you got to be careful there. But then there are enemies that have a machine gun and shield combo, so you cannot, if you're coming at an enemy trying to kill them and you have the shield and they have the shield up, you'll bounce right off of it, and you'll have to find a way to go around, like maybe underneath or up through a vent, and try and get them when they're turned around. And then of course there are the flamethrower ones, which are really, really tough, because they'll set you on fire, and then you'll rapidly begin losing your health bar, and you'll have to figure out a way to kind of, if you could survive it until the fire dies off, or if there's a pool of water that you could quickly get to. I guess the combat in this game is you just rushing towards them, towards the enemies, and just eating them. Like, there's like, you have control of like the right stick, which aims like a tentacle that grabs enemies. So you just grab the enemy and shake them around a little bit, and then you could kind of bring the enemy towards your mouth to kind of its corpse. You could bring the corpse towards your mouth to kind of eat it, and eating your dead foes, eating the dead scientists that you kill, regains health for you. It's all about that health bar. Those kind of like, for example, invisibility, you can only use that ability when you're a level 1 biomass. You can't use it as a level 2 or 3, so you have to shed down, either lose health or shed a piece of your biomass in one of those pools to be able to use that ability again. And they do a good job of mixing that through, so like you are using tier 1 abilities late in the game. So it's not like, okay, well, I'm level 3 biomass now, I'll never need to use invisibility again. Yes, you will. You'll have to, as I explained earlier, drop some biomass in the pool. But yeah, like the combat, and I use air quotes, is simple. Very simple, but it's fun to kind of rip them apart and eat the scientists. But you have to approach with some care when it comes to those flamethrower enemies or the shield enemies, because they will fuck you up quickly if you're not careful. You have to kind of figure it out. And then there are mech enemies as well, which are also dangerous. You kind of have to take the lid off of the mech and pull the human out of it, and it'll deactivate. There's also tier 3 ability that you could use to mind control some of these scientists. So that's a really fun, I think it's level 3 or maybe level 2, where you could a tentacle comes out and you could connect it to an unsuspecting scientist or guard or whatever. Now you get full control of it, and you can use their weapon. If they have a pistol or a machine gun, you can now run around and kill other scientists and enemies with that enemy. You could even flip switches and solve puzzles with that mind-controlled enemy as well. Like, there's so many. It's such a clever gameplay design. Simple, yet clever, and really clever puzzles and abilities, and how they're used with the health, in conjunction with the health and the puzzles and everything. Just a really well crafted gameplay design. I briefly brought up the story, and I think the story is decent. I think actually it's a little bit more than decent. It's very simple. Like, there aren't really many cutscenes. There are 3 or 4 kind of flashback sequences where you're flashing back to the scientist that you were originally, as you're going through. It's very, very short flashbacks. You're going through and kind of investigating this biomass in a facility, or in the facility, I guess it is. And it shows you're playing as the scientist, and then eventually, like midway through the game, that scientist, because I guess it touched a sample of that kind of weird biomass that they discovered, you turn into the carrion monster, and you now are, it's revealed, oh wow, this scientist is now the monster. Then later on in the story, at the end, you turn back into the human, and you finally get to the exit of the facility, and you turn from the monster that you've been the whole time back into the human that you played in the flashbacks, and you walk out of the facility over all of the scientists' corpses and guards that you've murdered and maimed throughout the game. You're just walking casually over their corpses, out of the facility and into the sunset, and that was just such a cool moment. It's just like, yeah, I'm this monster. I killed all these bodies, but now it's my turn to escape. It's, I finally reached the end. Like, really subtle storytelling. Not a huge portion of this game is spent on storytelling, but the portion of time that is spent on it is very well done. Very well done. Is it the best story ever? No, but it's just an awesome game all around. Like, I mean, what else can I say about it? I definitely, you need to play this for yourself to really get a grasp of, I was gleeful as I was playing it. Just the level design. I keep saying level design and puzzle design, but that's what's so good. It's those aspects of the game that make it such an incredible experience. One that I really fell in love with. I finished this game and I was like, holy shit. Carrion is a spectacular game. I really can't recommend it enough. It's one of my favorite 2D games ever. And of course, as I mentioned, the first ever 2D game to earn my game of the year. But such a brilliant atmosphere and art style and everything else about it. It's nearly perfect. I know no game is perfect, but this one is up there. This Carrion is up there. And yes, it's pronounced, I know it's spelled like carry on, but we're not boarding a plane here. It's, it's carrion. That's how it's pronounced, carrion. Phenomenal 2D adventure puzzle game. I guess you could describe it as just a treat. And congratulations again to Phobia Game Studios. This was their very, very first video game, and they are in the smack in the middle of my radar. They are on that radar. I am really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do next. Of course, this was published by Devolver Digital. Shout out to them as well. Congratulations to all of these studios: Capcom, CD Projekt Red, id Software, Me Productions, Cardboard Computer, Ryu Gagatoku Studios, Moon Studios, Ion Lands, and Thunder Lotus for making my 10 favorite games of 2020. amazing studios, and a bright future ahead for all of them, including of course Phobia Game Studios for making their very first. And I'm really looking forward to what they have coming in the future. Maybe a Carrion 2. That would be interesting to see. But yeah, shout out to all of these game studios. And shout out to all these games. I recommend all of them. But yeah, so that's my top 10 games of 2020. What were your top 10 games of 2020? Let me know somewhere, either in the description of this very video or catch me on Twitter at SuperPositiveGs. Link is, I'll throw the link over there in the description. But yeah, thank you for sticking through. I know this is a long video, but I really truly love making this long form video every year, going through and talking about each of my favorite games of the past year. But thank you for sticking around if you stuck around to this point. But until next time, I will see you later. Goodbye.